All right. You're listening to the We're Talking Football podcast. I'm Weston. With me, as always, my right-hand man, Lou. Lou, tonight we dive a little further into our second episode covering the NFL free agency period. This evening, we're going to focus in on the AFC and NFC North teams. But this is another special edition for us here at the We're Talking Football. We are joined by two guests this evening. From the Keeping Up with the BS podcast, co-hosts Scott and Ben were kind enough to jump in here and discuss their respective teams. So, fellas, keep me honest here. For our audience that have yet to meet you, Scott, your heart belongs to the Dog Pound in Cleveland, to those Brownies. And Ben, your passion resides somewhere on the 50-yard line of Soldier Field and the Bears. For now. But in all seriousness, because I'm going to take jabs at both of you all evening, we do appreciate you joining us. We hope you have fun with us this evening, and we very much value and look forward to your input on your respective teams. We will get to it in just a moment. But again, first and foremost, sincerely appreciate you taking the time for us this evening.
Thanks for having us. These are exciting times.
Love it.
Pleasure is ours.
All right. It's a little mine too, but yeah, it's more yours. All right, curveball for the evening, two of them. Relevant term, right? Baseball just came to an agreement, so here we go. A little bit of that 12-6 hook.
Snap it.
So the most widely discussed topic up until about 3 hours ago was the trade between the Seattle Seahawks and the Denver Broncos, and the Broncos acquiring Russell Wilson. So I'm going to ask, and Ben, I'll start with you. I'm going to ask you to give me just a minute on your sentiment about this trade.
A minute on Russell Wilson. Where do we even begin? Shout out to Pete Carroll for turning our trade down last year. You know, you could have had the next guy that we're going to discuss because this happened today. Hurt me very immensely. But, you know, Russell Wilson in Denver, I like the sight of it. It takes me back to Peyton Manning beating them. No, JK, that was the other way around. I don't remember what I was doing during that Super Bowl. But I'm pretty sure he's the first quarterback to start for a team that he's beaten in the Super Bowl. Am I correct? I think that might be a thing.
I don't have a stat guy he took off this evening,
okay, that's
but
fair.
I'm just going to go with yes.
I will expect the YouTube fact checkers to check that for me and circle back to me. You can reach me at hashtag Please Be Nice to Ben Day. We'll talk about that hashtag in a little bit. But I do like Russell Wilson in Denver. I think he's got a better chance out west there than he did further west in Seattle, because that team is just going downhill faster than my team.
Yep. They are. That's a fact, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Scott, give me a minute.
Oh, man. It was a good run for the Legion of Boom. Final pieces gone. Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner gone. They're in full rebuild mode, so might as well get some capital. I think Seattle got a good amount of capital. What they do with that capital, is up to them. So good luck to the GM. Hopefully he doesn't get fired, because his job will depend on what he does with the capital. And I think I speak for three of us right here. Man, I'm glad I don't play in the AFC West. Like, what a division. You got to play Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Derek Carr, Justin Herbert. Like, oh, wow, what a division. Gonna be some awesome games in that division. But I'm glad that we don't have to take 6 games out of my schedule for that division to play in. So rest in peace to all those opponents in the AFC West.
Yeah. All right, Lou. This is your moment. This is your division. I'll give you 45 seconds.
Two things. When I first got the news, a lot of emotions these last 2 days. First, when Aaron Rodgers was staying in Green Bay, I was like, yes, because obviously everyone knows that he was being linked to the Denver Broncos. So I'm like, whoo, I was talking shit, on Twitter to all Donkey fans. And then this, unfolded. I was like, oh shit, Chargers, almost like from the Water Boy. We suck again. So it was hard, and the reason being is because when we covered this, over the season, the Broncos always have the Chargers number. Like, they're like literally the Chargers are like 5-11 against the Broncos last 16, and that's with quarterbacks of Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. So now they're getting Russell Wilson. I thought I'm like, this is not good. I was not happy with that. And rumors are that Carroll's going to trade those 2 first-round picks for a safety. So be on the lookout for that.
Like you do.
All right, I'm gonna return the favor for you. So y'all see that banner behind me, right? So good fucking riddance, Russell Wilson. You've been a thorn in my ass for the last 10 goddamn years. But kudos to you because you are a winner. You might be the corniest man to grace the NFL, but you are a winner, and you're going to what now could probably be argued as the best division in football, and leaving at one time was argued as the best division in football. But nobody is more excited to see this man go than I. Trust me. I do honestly think Denver gave up. Like, listen, I know it's the quarterback, it's the most important position in the world. We started this season, we go through like our top 10 by position. Both of us had Russell Wilson as our third best quarterback in the NFL, but a lot of that's about reluctantly, like a lot of that's about winning more than it is like statistics and things of that nature. But I made this point to Lou. Cautionary tale here. Russell made his bones by never missing a football game since he was the starter of that team. This year, that body finally broke a little bit on him. And I'm old enough to tell you that once the body breaks once, it breaks a lot, and it breaks consistently, especially in a contact sport, especially in that division where you're bringing other people in to go hammer and murder the quarterback, which we'll talk about in a second. But again, bye, Russell. Nobody wants to see this, the 12th man crumble down to the 10th man, just like I do. So that brings me to my next point. I didn't even have this in my notes because this shit happened so fast, and I had prepared for the show before we even started the show. Ben, I'm going to bring it back to you.
Pain.
Cry me a river, brother. What just happened here with Khalil Mack going to the Los Angeles Chargers?
Hold on, Ben. Yeah, you keep on going. I just got to change something. Hold on one second.
Go for it.
You can go.
Oh, I can go. First, before anything, I would just like to congratulate the. Okay, that's that's.
I did not agree to this for the record prior to this conversation.
That's fair. That's fair. I would just like to point out that the Broncos and now the Chargers have made reactionary moves to the Kansas City Chiefs, bringing home the pride and joy of Matt Nagy. I would just like to point that out. Matt Nagy.
Ben, your internet, bro.
Oh, Ben's frozen.
Well, he's frozen because, I mean, we don't know what's really going on with Ben right now. He's probably extremely sad. I'll take over for him. Yes. I'm just a little, as a Chargers fan, I'm just a little bit excited. To be honest with you, you have to temper your expectations. I will say this was.
I can't take you seriously right now, dude.
Okay. Right. So all kidding aside, as a Chargers fan, I'm extremely excited. It does so many different things for the LA Chargers. It improves their run game. I mean, their run defense. It basically not only does it do that, it possibly gives them the best pass rushing duo in the NFL. So I'm a firm believer that, in order to take away these quarterbacks in the AFC West that are very mobile, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, you that athleticism on the outside. And kudos for the Chargers for finally, being aggressive in a move like this. When I first saw the news, my knee-jerk reaction was like, shit, there goes our 17th pick, and there probably goes our third-round pick too. And then when I saw that we gave up less than what the Rams gave for Von Miller only for half a season, which was a second and fourth, we gave a second and a sixth. I was extremely excited, and I realized it wasn't going to hamper the Chargers. So the West is insane. It's a wild, wild West, man.
Yep. All right, Ben, we'll come back to you, dude. We did
yes.
We made an
Ryan
editor's
Poles
decision to buy
confirmed.
you some time.
Yes, that or Ryan Poles is. I cannot confirm or deny. He's outside my apartment right now trying to sabotage my internet. But it was painful at first. I just gotten baseball back. And then 20 minutes later, someone calls me and they go, "Did you just see what happened to Khalil Mack?" I go, "What? What happened?" I'm thinking like he tore a ligament or something. No, he got traded. And I'm like, you know what? This sucks. This absolutely sucks. So I sat on that and I'm like, I'll just wait and see what happens with the contract. And I feel like at this point, we weren't going to win anything. We're not winning a Super Bowl in 2022, even if Khalil Mack is in his prime. We're not winning a Super Bowl next year. We were a 6-win team this year. He had the surgery that ended the season this year. That helped Robert Quinn take off. I am going to break the news right now that Robert Quinn's probably going to get traded next. Wouldn't surprise me. He just had an 18.5 sack season. Makes sense to move that contract too. This is where we're at in Chicago. When you have a quarterback like Justin Fields, hopefully knock on wood, this is the guy finally after so many years of pain at the quarterback position. This is our guy. We need to build an offense that's going to be suited to fit his play, basically. Because, Ryan Poles helped build that offense that they have in Kansas City, and that worked out pretty well for them. I wish it would have worked out well for us, but we had Mitch and Matt.
Yeah.
Now we have Matt and Ryan again, but you can't, lightning doesn't strike twice in the same place. So it's not going to be bad this time. I've just accepted that.
Well, I have to agree with you that I think Justin Fields is the guy, right? And I think
so.
right now what you're doing right now is we all know that teams in the NFL win with more often than not with quarterbacks under rookie contract because it gives you so much more flexibility on your salary cap. And that's what they're doing, right? Like, hey, it's a change of the guard, new coach, new GM, new quarterback, like new faces all around. That's what it means.
I mean, like even the Chargers as an example, like you were able to go get that contract because you still got Justin Herbert playing on that contract.
You have to maximize
what you gotta
that window. You got to maximize that 5-year window. It's really like 4 years because you can extend it out. But Scott, you and I don't have any skin in this game whatsoever. But give me your thoughts on that Mac trade.
I have one question, and I just need a yes or no, very simple question. Was that move a reaction move because Aaron Rodgers came back to Green Bay? Like, if Aaron Rodgers retires or goes to Denver, does Khalil Mack get traded?
Yes. That's my opinion, because I still don't think Chicago, regardless of who the quarterback is in Green Bay, I still don't think Chicago's competing. And I think what I like about this new regime is I think they're very aware of that. And there's a lot to be said for like awareness. Right. I still think so. That's
how we got the Robert Quinn contract. That was bad last year.
If they would try and win the division, because that division without Aaron Rodgers, I feel like is kind of up for grabs. So I don't know if Chicago stays more competitive and tries to, be the mediocre guy, win the division, at 9-8 and get bounced in the first round of the plaplayoffs, or go ahead and
not
trade
taking the North
the
back
capital and try to make it a Super Bowl run. So
I agree with Ben. I just don't think they're there yet, and I think you do more harm than good if you do waddle into the playoffs at 9-8. You know what I mean, or something along those lines, and you win your division. Because like, what are teams that you're seeing that are being successful? Where do they build? A little bit in free agency, a lot in the draft. Younger, cheaper, find a diamond in the rough.
Yep.
It comes hard to find that diamond in the rough when you're picking in the middle of the pack, right? Like some of these new regimes, there's more value to them to be like, I'd rather be. Honestly, if you were to ask this coach right now in public and the GM, be like, you want to pick in the top 10 next year, or do you want to waddle into the playoffs and lose in the first round? And they'll say, I want to pick in the top 10. Do you know? Like, that's literally, I think, what their response would be. If I was a GM, that would be my response, because that's where I'm going to hang my hat on my future, is what does my top 10 pick look like? What is my top 5 pick? That's why all these guys draft quarterbacks so early, regardless if they're good or not, because that's where they hang their hat, and that's what their career literally hangs on. So, but I think it's a fair question, Scott, but I'll take it a step further for you. Do I think this move is reactionary? I 100% do. I think it's reactionary on behalf of the Chargers, saying, holy shit, now Russell Wilson is in this division too?
Yeah.
How do you stymie a good passing game? You bolster your pass rush.
Yep.
I'm actually going to say it's not reactionary. And the reason being is because I'm going to
because you're just the devil's advocate.
I'm going to lone wolf it. Ooh. So the reason why I don't think it's a reactionary, I actually heard rumblings last year during the trade deadline that the Chargers were reaching out to the Bears about Khalil Mack. Obviously, Staley has a connection with Khalil Mack. So if they were flirting last year, do you know what I'm saying? I just feel like it started last year, and I know it picked up crazy quick today, and it's reactionary from the Chargers, like you said, Weston, because of Russell Wilson joining the AFC West.
So if it wasn't like an instant reaction, like knee jerk, right, would be the NFL terminology there, it heightened the urgency to get this done, right? At the very least, it was like, yo, we need to pull this. If it's not Khalil, like, we're going to scramble. We got to find somebody else. And Lou, you and I will talk about this when we get into the West. Tonight is about the North. Tonight is about Ben. Tonight is about Scott, and it's about you and I filling in the gaps. But I appreciate you all indulging me and kind of going through those hooks right there. But before we actually dive into the free agency piece, just want to highlight the rules of engagement for everybody and listeners as well. We're going to begin with the AFC North. Did I say that? Yeah, AFC North. Go to the NFC North. For each team, we're going to highlight cap space. Like, this is kind of like the flow, right? And you'll get it from Lou, but it's like, hey, cap space where they sit right now. We're going to talk about positions of need, some important free agents, potential cap casualties. And then at like the highest level, like, who are some free agents they might scratch the surface on? Knowing that we're going through 8 teams, like, we don't tend to rattle off like the statistics of every single like free agent, but this is your guys' time. Whatever you prepared, you could go through. I won't take it away from you, but prepare for us to chime in on you, and we expect you to do the same for us. So,
absolutely,
Lou, starting in the AFC North, I have on my list here you starting with the Baltimore Ravens. Are you prepared to do that?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, that answer is correct.
So, yes, Baltimore Ravens, they have a cap space of $15.6 million, which ranks them roughly around the middle of the pack, the 17th in the NFL. Their top needs is offensive line, in particular, I'm going to say guard and right tackle. They gave up 57 sacks last year, which ranks second worst in the league. So they had to do something to bolster that offensive line. And speaking on the offensive line, this is weird because the Ravens team, you always think about the trenches are really important to them, but their defensive line is pretty awful too, and they have a lot of needs there. I'm talking about nose tackle, defensive end. The Ravens are going through a change of guard, in my opinion, and last but not least, cornerback. That's definitely I wouldn't say a need, but they do prioritize the cornerback position, like we stated in the past, over pass rushers. They love having 3 really good cornerbacks, and they've lost some. I'm going to talk about in a little bit. They've lost some of their cornerback value there. So priority for free agents, I don't foresee them re-signing a lot of their own because a lot of their free agents are really old and like long in the tooth. But that being said, and they need new blood on the defensive side of the ball. But here are some of the free agents they currently have right now. Sammy Watkins, 28-year-old wide receiver. By the way, I still can't believe he's only 28 years old. I feel like he's been in the league for 16 years.
Sammy Watkins.
Yeah, Sammy Watkins, man.
239 great.
Scott, that's a perfect segue. Yeah, his injury history and his poor play doesn't justify the Baltimore Ravens bringing him back. So I don't see them re-sign him. Bradley Bozeman, now, 27-year-old center. This guy, I think he's going to have a robust market, and they really should do a lot. The Ravens should do a lot to try to re-sign him because he was their bright spot on that Ravens poor pass protecting offensive line. He only gave up 3 sacks last year and a PFF grade of 73.3. So like I said, he really he's going to have a robust market. They need really to sign him to a long-term deal. Brandon Williams, 33-year-old nose tackle. You don't re-sign a 33-year-old nose tackle. He's just a run stuffer, one-dimensional. He was great, for them, when he was in his prime. But like I said, he's no longer in his prime. Calais Campbell, 35-year-old defensive end. Age and injury concerns are starting to mount up. I don't really foresee them bringing him back, to be honest with you. Justin Houston, 33-year-old edge rusher, mediocre production, 4.5 sacks. Plus, they have the apparent heir right behind Justin Houston in the uber athletic Odafe Owe, who really flashed, I felt like, last year.
Can we call him by the name that he was going until he got into the NFL? It's Jason Owe, and then all of a sudden, like mid-season, it was just like, oh, I changed my name. I'm like, you could do that when you're in the NFL. Like, you could just
that was like the weirdest thing ever. I was like, who?
Yeah, I was like, who's Adobe Owe? I remember Jason Owe running a 4.40 at like the combine one day, but.
Don't be a dick, Weston. Don't you call him Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? Or do you call him by his government name? I mean,
Lou Cinder.
But what was the hand size?
Most
America deserves to know.
So 2 more.
We're bigger than Kenny Pickett's.
Deshaun Elliott, 24-year-old safety. He has limited production. He's good for depth, so they might bring him back. He won't break the bank. And last but not least, Jimmy Smith, 33-year-old cornerback. Really shouldn't be in the business of signing a 33-year-old cornerback, even though he did provide them value over the last couple of years. I was shocked they brought him back last year because of his age.
All right, who are you cutting?
Yeah, some possible cap casualties. They need to get Lamar into contract. I was going
to say, what's getting held up with that? We're going into year 4.
Well, what's getting held up with that, Lamar doesn't have an agent. And he's doing these negotiations on himself, and he's trying to maximize his value. Yeah, right?
His mom's his mom is his agent.
Exactly. So they're going to have to restructure Ronnie Stanley and I think the Mark Andrews deal to really open up. Because when we're talking about that $15.6 million, they still have to sign a whole draft class too. And by the way, guys, that's another rule. We do not talk about the draft, but I will talk about the draft. So just
if you're going to talk about the draft, you have to preface it with we're not talking about the draft. That's a rule here, just by the way.
We don't talk about the draft. Hashtag
it. No, we don't talk about the draft. So recently they've had some the Ravens had some news in the this past week with some not acquisitions, but they lost some players. Andrew Villanueva, 33-year-old tackle, he retired. That saved him about $6 million in cap space. They cut Tavon Young, 27-year-old safety. He was a solid starter, but they saved $5.8 million in cap space. I also can see them looking to part ways with Marcus Peters. I'm a firm believer that you get rid of a player a year earlier than a year late. He's 29 years old. I know he's good and all, but he's a ball hawk. But you can save $10 million by walking away from him. And this is where they are in the – if we were talking about the draft, which we're not, but where they are in the draft spot, they could possibly get a guy to replace him. So that's for possible cap casualties. Free agent targets, even though Baltimore really doesn't have a ton of money, I do expect them to make some solid moves and perhaps like a one big splash. Let's look at the defensive line, some pass rushers. They love bringing in veterans along the defensive line. I could actually see them targeting players like Chandler Jones, but if that gets too steep, maybe lesser options like Akeem Hicks, Randy Gregory, and Emmanuel Ogbah, who's coming off back-to-back 9-sack seasons. Those are some edge or pass rushers they can actually target. If they're looking to try to replace Brandon Williams, some of the guys that would kick the tires on, B.J. Hill, Sebastian Joseph Day, Daquan Jones. I'm going to try to do this. Folu Ransu Fatsukasi from the Jets. He's a good he's a good run stuffer too.
Football guy.
Yeah. Cornerbacks. Baltimore always puts an emphasis, like I said, on that back end, that defense. With the departure of Jimmy Smith, maybe they look to get away from Marcus Peters, but I feel like they're gonna kind of steal what the Bengals did and get more value signings in the back end. Maybe Darius Williams, Steven Nelson, albeit he doesn't really probably fit their scheme too much and more because he's more of a zone cornerback. But Bryce Callahan and Rasul Douglas are all guys I think that would fit in that mold what they're looking for. And
Rasul would fit right in Baltimore. Dude.
I really do
just
think
the guy off the scrap heap that just continues the ball left.
Get him out of my division.
Yeah.
Get him out of here. Get them all out of here.
Well, we've been talking about
my team.
Yeah. We've been talking about the AFC West, right? So there's another player I feel like I'm from the AFC West can probably go to the North. Tyrone Matthew is another name to watch out. They love those veteran defenders, like I said, and he provides flexibility as safety and slot cornerback. Think of the versatility that they love. They had Reed. They brought in Weddle, Deion Sanders. I mean, I know that's a stretch, but they did. These are the type of this is an organization that covets versatility in the back end. And offensive line, they're probably going to be in the market of some value offensive linemen like James Daniels, Andrew Norwell, Alex Kappa, Mark Lewinsky. Those are the type of people I feel like they just fit the Baltimore mold right there to improve that passing rushing offense there.
It's funny because I see, like, as you're talking through this, Lou, like Scott's got a little bit of a smirk to him, and I know that smirk is like, these ain't your daddy's Baltimore Ravens anymore. They're a little bit different, man. They're little bit different. And
they're old.
And they're
really
like,
good ducks, that's for sure.
For real. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's blood in the water, dude. And these Bengals, these Brownies, like, they smell that shit. Like, think about it.
They smell Lamar's shit.
Yeah, and it probably smells way better than mine because it's Lamar Jackson. But what I'm saying is, like, think about Scott. You've been in this division forever, right? Like, who's been the belle of the ball? It's either Pittsburgh or Baltimore for how long, right? And these teams are limping into 2022 in some capacity. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say. And after you heard Lou's like run down how we go through, you feeling good to talk about the dog pound and your Brownies for a little bit?
Oh yeah, definitely. I want to make a couple comments about the Ravens, though. They know what they're doing. They're a very well-run organization. So whatever moves they do make, no matter what names are out of that building, they're still going to be competitive, and they still have Lamar Jackson playing quarterbacks. So I will still respect them as a football team, as an organization. I think they're scumbags. They stole my football team out of Cleveland. They fired Bill Belichick, by the way. It wasn't the Browns. Everyone gets that confused, like, oh, the Browns had Bill Belichick and Nick Saban, and they fired Bill Belichick. No, they moved the team. Art Modell moved the team to Baltimore, and then he fired Bill Belichick. It wasn't the Browns that fired Bill Belichick. So that's how I got to get that off my chest. A lot of people like to ask me the question, do I hate the Steelers or the Ravens more? I hate the Ravens more. I don't care about
the Ravens
Steelers.
Are the Browns. Like they literally were the Browns.
Like we watched them win the Super Bowl. Like that was Art Modell's team that he moved out of Cleveland. Like it's sickening. But on a more positive note, we go into the 2022 Cleveland Browns, which the expectation level coming into 2021, Super Bowl contender. We were up there. Like everyone was feeling us. We had Vegas feeling us. We had the whole league feeling, what we came off of, taking Kansas City in the divisional round of that last Chad Henne 3rd and 15 still nightmares about it.
Chad Henne 3rd and 15.
yeah, Chad Henne out of Michigan. It hurts even more as a Buckeye fan. Then they go out and get 9 new starters on defense, have a great draft, really swung in free agency, John Johnson, Troy Hill last year, Clowney. So expectations were so high, and everyone kind of knows how the season went. We don't have to relive it. But coming into this offseason with a lot of positivity, $28 million in cap space, ranks 11th in the league. And I think everyone knows our top need is a wide receiver. Our wide receiver room, and then our defensive line at the tackle spot and the end spot. Clowney is going to test the waters. He wants some money, but I think he's going to give the Browns an opportunity to match at the end of it. So hopefully the market isn't too hot for him. We'd really like to keep him. I think he kind of found his rhythm being a number 2 pass rusher next to Myles Garrett. 9 sacks, hit his incentive bonus last year. So he got a nice payday. And he said that he liked being in Cleveland and he loves the fans and wants to play here. But obviously Clowney's a businessman. He likes to get paid. I don't blame him. So go ahead and, test the waters. We do need some defensive back depth. Greedy Williams as a number 2, number 3 corner for us. He's got nerve damage in his shoulder, so I can't trust him to be healthy for 17 games. Greg Newsome is out there as our number 1 corner, or number 2 right behind Denzel, which we need to pay this man. Pay him like tomorrow. By the time this drops on YouTube, he should be paid. Probably won't be, but he should be. Let's see. Other free agents on our team, David Njoku recently just got the franchise tag. There's supposed to be a long-term deal in the works there. Ernest Johnson isn't talked about, but in our running back room with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, we really don't need Ernest Johnson, but to me, we need Ernest Johnson. Like Nick Chubb was, limping around sometimes this year. Kareem Hunt missed about half our games, probably even more if I had to count. So Ernest Johnson, he needs to be re-signed, and I expect that to get done as well. With our cap casualties, we got a lot of them, and unfortunately, by the time that this video posts, Jarvis Landry is probably going to be cut. I was hearing by Friday that there was going to be a move made on Jarvis. That's
almost 15 million, dude, for Jarvis.
Yeah, it's a 1.5 dead cap if they move on from him, and his salary 16.3.
2 years too late, if you ask me. I'm not a Landry fan. I thought they should have cut him last year because he was a big cap hit, and they could have saved money last year. I thought.
Yeah, there's Jarvis gets paid. Jarvis was paid on past production, not future production. And he's kind of the heart and soul of that locker room. Obviously, we all saw the Hard Knock speech and what he's meant to that receiver locker room and really just the team in general and a big part of the city. So I think cutting him this year is probably the right idea. But that just means we need wide receivers. Austin Hooper also has a big cap hit, but it looks like Stefanski is going to keep him and run a 3 tight end set again. Austin Hooper actually leads the NFL in falls after the catch. New stat.
That's a good stat.
Yeah. Falling after the catch, he leads the league. I've never
That's
seen
a new PFF stat.
Yeah,
right?
it's part of it rolled out this year on the next gen stats. Falling after.
I like that.
I've never seen a guy who just catches the ball and just falls flat on his face.
What's yards after catch? Doesn't exist.
Catch and fall on the ground. It's honestly incredible. It's impressive because I think he has to try to do it.
He doesn't want to get hit
it's
playing
unbelievable
football.
to watch. Yeah. Case Keenum also has a big cap hit. I believe $8.4 million. He's got a $1 million roster bonus here on March 20th. So unless there's a move made before the 20th, you're not going to pay him $1 million and then cut him. He's going to cut more on the cap. Free agency targets, man. Last year the Browns came out and Andrew Berry doesn't say anything in any press conference. It's honestly incredible, but it's so frustrating as a fan because he's so intelligent and knows how to maneuver around questions. So you kind of have to read between the lines with him. So I have no idea what he's going to actually do in free agency, but there's reports coming out that they want to take a swing at Amari Cooper. They were going to swing at Mike Williams. They were going to swing at Chris Godwin, but the market has kind of shrunk a little bit. So we're kind of looking at if they want the number one in free agency, Amari Cooper's there. I don't see them taking a swing at him, but they'll check in on the contract. But I just think it's too rich. If you're not going to pay Jarvis Landry $16 million, I don't think that they're going to go out and pay Amari Cooper $16 million. So I kind of look at that mid-tier wide receivers for the Browns, going after the Cedric Wilsons, the Christian Kirks. I think DJ Chark would be huge in the system. Those are kind of the guys that I'm looking in the wide receiver core. When you flip over to the defensive side of the ball, obviously Clowney is probably their number one target. And then I look at a guy like Emmanuel Ogbah, actually. The Browns drafted him. He played in Cleveland for a couple of years, coming off a couple good seasons. We never actually used Ogbah in a way that he would succeed because the guy's 6'4", 6'5", and just had naturally raw talent. I think we took him in the second round. It was a pretty significantly high pick that we used on Ogbah, but we never really gave him the opportunity to succeed in a starting role. And that's when, he went out, we traded him to Kansas City and he was decent there, but then he really has been shining in Miami and I'd like to bring him back. I think they're looking veteran defensive end. And then, we don't talk about the draft, but, take a pass rusher in the second round to develop behind a guy like Myles Garrett. But that's kind of what it looks like. Derek Barnett's also a wild card. I think there was some buzz about the Browns potentially trading for him or looking at him in years back. So I kind of put the 2 and 2 together on that one. And then I wouldn't mind if we took a swung back and brought home good old Larry Ogunjobi at the defensive tackle. We got Jordan Elliott, 3rd round pick from Mizzou a couple years ago. 3rd season. He should take a starting role. He can. And we took Togi out of Ohio State last year late in the draft. Played a little bit, more of a rotational player. Malik Jackson could come back on a 1-year deal. And Sheldon Richardson's also a guy that I'd look for making another reunion after a year away from Cleveland. But that's my free agency recap of what I think the Browns could do. But Andrew Berry's a lot smarter than me, and I'm just a casual fan. So I have no idea what he's going to do. I could be completely wrong.
I think so. You make a couple good points here, Scott. Right? Because I think sometimes we're the Monday morning quarterbacks, right? You should have done this. You should do this, right? But these guys are far more intelligent than we are. There's a reason why they got to where they are. So once in a while, we just have to try to be I hope my guy has the best intentions here. But the other thing that I have a question for you, but before a question, I have a statement. I agree with you on the whole Ernest Johnson thing. Do you need him? I don't know if you need him, but I tell you this much. He is more valuable to you on your team than he is being somewhere else in the NFL playing for another team. Yeah, exactly. Lou's been actively seeking that number, that credible number 2, which is what he very much is in this NFL. And like you said, like the health of Nick Chubb, like that's a big deal, right? Like, and it felt like when Chubb was down, like y'all didn't miss a beat. You know what I mean? No. Like it when Kareem Hunt was down, y'all didn't miss a beat. And it's like, do you spend them because he's going to want more money than he was being paid, and he deserves more money than he was going to being paid? But do you spend it as the insurance policy versus letting him? I mean, what happens if he ends up in the AFC North and you have to face this guy somewhere, right? Like that's the chef's kiss. Like you don't want that to.
Hey! If you love him, let him go. All right.
If it's come back, they come back. It was meant to be.
Yeah, and I think the Chargers would like actually be the perfect spot for Ernest, like as well. Like I think it's a match made in heaven.
He's high on my board. I would.
Which means part of this business is not letting those things happen too, right?
Yep,
like
exactly.
And then, okay, he sits another year. Do you flip that next year? You know what I mean? Like, can you flip that into a draft pick if you have him on a 2-year deal? Maybe it's a fourth, a fifth, whatever it is. Get something in. I'm a big believer in the get something for someone, whatever it is, versus just letting them walk. And when we're talking about your third string running back, like it's not like he's commanding $4, $5, $6, $7 million a year. Like he knows that's not the market, and like you have the cap space, so you have to play that. This is when it becomes chess, not checkers, right? Like the NFL. My question to you, let's address this.
I know it's coming.
Is Baker Mayfield the fucking guy or what? Man?
I noticed he didn't talk about Baker.
Am I the first Browns fan in 2022 to talk about the Browns for 7 minutes and not mention Baker Mayfield's name?
Yes. I think you are.
Yeah,
I was a little confused.
I was literally looking like Dave Chappelle and his crackhead skit. Like, when's he going to give it to me? When's he going to say it?
Scott, I was confused.
They're so addicted. Everyone's so addicted to talking about Baker.
Scott, I was confused. Why would you cut, or why would you let Case Keenum go? He's your starting quarterback.
Yeah, he ain't my starting quarterback. I can tell you that.
Well, the way I've seen people on Brown's Twitter be on the Mitch Trubisky train. It sounds like they're on the Trubisky train right now.
They are.
Is that legit?
Here's my problem with Brown's Twitter, and it's honestly the most toxic place on the planet. Like, if you think you have like toxic ex-girlfriends, like you should see Brown's Twitter like on Sunday. It is the most toxic place on this planet, and it's so frustrating because there are fans that would rather just be right about Baker Mayfield than have the Browns be good. Like, they rooted for Deshaun Kaiser and Kevin Hogan and Colt McCoy and Bruce Gradkowski and Thad Lewis, and I can go down the whole list of the quarterback jersey if you want to. But Baker is there. They want to be right about Baker. And, you should have took this. You should have took Josh Allen. You should have taken Lamar. Like, first off, Lamar wasn't even in the conversation. He got passed off by every other person.
They wanted him to play wide receiver in the NFL. Nobody even wanted him to play quarterback.
and Sam Darnold was also in the conversation. He's not looking good. Josh Rosen's out of the league. The only argument that you can make is Josh Allen, but he was
should have got Carson Wentz.
Same coach, same offensive coordinator for his first 4 years, and that's what Josh Allen needed, and he wasn't getting that in Cleveland, so we would have ruined him too. And the Baker drama is so intense that like it's an everyday conversation. Like when I listen to ESPN Cleveland from 9 to 1 every day, it's nothing but Baker talking, Baker this and Baker that, and it's so frustrating. Sometimes I have to turn it off and like mentally recoup. But here's the thing: Baker played last year with the torn labrum, and we can go on and on about how the Browns should have stepped in and said, Baker, it's best for you and best for our future to sit out. Like, please just like be on board with us. Because I'm not dogging the dude for wanting to play. Like, because if he was like, I don't want to play, we'd question if he loves football or not. But Baker's proven the moment that Odell got hurt, like in that Cincinnati game, he completed every single pass except for one. He spiked the ball with like 30 seconds left, and then threw the game-winning touchdown to Donovan Peoples-Jones with 13 seconds left. And then he proceeded to throw 20 touchdowns and 2 interceptions the rest of the season, take us to the playoffs, go to Pittsburgh, win a playoff game, and then the next week followed up in Kansas City. And then we're talking about, oh, why didn't the Browns pay him? Why didn't the Browns pay him? He comes out week 1 of 2021, goes to Kansas City, goes 3 touchdown drives to open up the season, marched right down the field in Kansas City, and we blew it on special teams and we blew it on defense with a drop punt touchdown, 3 and out, and then a 75-yard touchdown to Tyreek Hill because our secondary was trash. And we blew that game, and then Baker came out the next week, tore his labrum against Houston, but went 19 of 21 with 2 touchdown passes, set an NFL record for completions percentage in the first 2 games of a year, and then proceeded to fall flat on his face, especially after J.J. Watt re-separated his shoulder in like week 9. He was awful from that point forward. But Baker didn't forget how to just throw a ball. He was playing injured and he was compromising for the injury, and he had bad habits. So run it back with Baker. If not, we have this team. We have such a core that next year we just can plug a quarterback in. We don't have a quarterback under contract after this season. So all the money that we have, we can throw it at a quarterback, or we can, take draft capital and trade up and get one if Baker isn't the guy. If Baker balls out this year, gets us into the playoffs, wins a playoff game, goes on a playoff run, you franchise tag him, and then you try to sign him to a long-term deal. Yep. It's a win-win situation. Run it back with them.
I so agree, because here's the little bit, a not so well-known secret in the NFL. You're a run-first team, right? Like, he doesn't have – if the run game – dude, you're talking to a 49ers fan, right? Like, you talk about toxic places and talking about the Jimmy Garoppolo nonsense that goes on every single day. I haven't logged on to Twitter in like 3 fucking weeks because I just want to throw up every time I do. But we're a run-first team. You're a run-first team. The run game goes, the quarterback can go. And I do agree that he played hurt. But here's something that I don't know. I don't want to call this a hot take. Your offense was worse when OBJ was healthy. Worse. The best thing that ever happened was him being gone and not being on the field, because you're not, when you are a run-first offense, you're not predicated on feed the prima donna, feed the superstar. Like, it's when you're a run-first offense, it's like you take what the defense gives you. You call the play that is sent into the huddle. Like, those are the things that you do, and it's like you don't need you don't need Amari Cooper. I think Jarvis Landry is actually good for the Cleveland Browns because I think he plays with heart. He's not a superstar. I know that. Is he worth $16 million a year? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No. But he fits the pedigree of what they're trying to do. Because what you're trying to do is exactly what my team tries to do. And it's not like, I know Deebo Samuel became this like budding star, but that was never the intention. It just worked out that way, right? Like, that was never the design in the lab. It just kind of worked out that way. And that's why I asked you that, because I wanted to hear a Browns fan come out and pound the table and say, I'm not saying he's the guy. What I'm saying is it logically makes sense that he's the guy right now. And listen, you're looking at a draft class where there is no the guy. Yeah, maybe there's one that comes from it. But maybe next year breeds something different. Next year's free agency market might breed something different. But to me, with what's left, this is not the year to go rock the boat at the quarterback position, in full transparency. So I set you up a little bit for that, but you pass with flying colors. That's what I was hoping to hear, my friend.
And you don't need Baker to be Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. That's just the end of the day.
When you're running for 2,500 yards in a season as a football team, like, that's not, your quarterback's not throwing for 4,500, 5,000 plus.
Don't need him to.
Exactly. Mathematically doesn't make
sense.
Not
necessary.
Yeah, 100%.
Be average. That's all I need.
Yeah. Don't lose the game. And win me 1 or 2, and we'll be all right. And Baker's plenty capable of winning 1 or 2.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's proceed, because I so badly want to get to the Bears, and we got a little bit of time here, so I'm going to run through this.
Good time.
I have your defending AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals. I'm just going to kind of start like this. Like, it's kind of what I was joking with you, Scott, about seeing your smirk, because like the tides have changed in this division, And nobody is actually sitting more pretty than the Cincinnati Bengals. Forget that they just represented the AFC in the Super Bowl, but for the mere fact of how young they are, how much they still
Weston,
have.
I gotta ask you a question, man. Do you ever think you would?
Never in my lifetime. Never in my lifetime.
This is how you know the world's fucked up. You got COVID, you got wars, and you got the Cincinnati Bengals going to the Super Bowl, man. Like, this is how you know, something's going on in this world.
I am old enough to say that I saw the Cincinnati Bengals play in their last time that they ever made the Super Bowl, and it was against my San Francisco 49ers, and they lost, but I'm old enough to say that. But here are the facts. Defending AFC champions, $34.6 million in cap space. So a team that literally just competed in the Super Bowl still ranks 7th overall in the NFL in cap space. Like, that's a scary proposition and a very enviable place to be in. For me, their top needs is super obvious. They need to repair that offensive line, and they need to get some help in that secondary, specifically at cornerback, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I'm Scott, I'm gonna disagree with you. Like, Eli Apple had a resurgence. The problem for him is he had his worst games on a national stage, right? That's what changed. Like, the bigger problem is
I agree with that.
The bigger problem is like Trey Waynes, right? Like, they spent all this money and Duke can't even stay on the field, right? And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But I do agree there's an opportunity to upgrade over Eli Apple. But I'm not going to shit on him, right? Because he did play well in stretches to contribute to be where they are. Like, we follow this game. This is the ultimate team sport.
He outplayed his contract.
100% outplayed his contract. 100%.
Oh, yeah.
And he was
we
infinitely
got
better than he was.
Eli Apple for this.
Exactly. And
his mom will come after you.
Yeah, no. Hey, listen. Eli Apple is a New Jersey guy. We will not tolerate that slander. And you mentioned Kenny Pickett and his hands before.
He's a Buckeye.
Who? Yeah, Eli. That's your
Apple.
guy.
Hey, yeah, he's a Buckeye. He's my guy.
Kenny Pickett grew up 10 minutes away from where Lou and I live, so we will not tolerate Kenny Pickett slander either.
Leave his hands alone.
Yeah, leave his hands alone. They look like mine. Why I don't play on Sundays. Yeah, exactly. He can't play in cold weather. What do you want me to tell you? He's got to play in the warm weather.
He played in Pittsburgh. All right,
I know.
Yeah. He's probably going to keep playing.
But I think let's just state the obvious for the Cincinnati Bengals. They need a straight up makeover of the offensive line, and it was glaringly obvious on a national stage throughout the playoffs. But yet they still were able to, in some capacity, overcome and then finally bit them in the ass in the Super Bowl. They have 32 total free agents. I don't really think they have a ton of like priority free agents of their own that they need to go get. A lot of these people a lot of their impact players are still on like rookie contracts, right? Yeah. Or have just like the Trey Hendricksons of the world just signed like long-term contracts with them. Yep. But if I had to like nitpick a little bit here where I think they can at least stay the same and help their case for next year, I would say tight end CJ Uzomah. I think he played very well last year. I think they're going to have some decisions to make on their number 3 wide receiver potentially this year. And there's not a lot of good available tight ends right now. You mentioned like Njoku signed the free agency, the franchise tag. Gesicki down in Miami signed the franchise tag. Like there's just not a lot there. Like, and these guys, and like Uzomah can play, right? And when he was asked to play, like he had some big games out there. I think you have to bring him back, is my opinion. You mentioned this guy before, former Brown, right? Ogunjobi, right? Larry
yep.
Former Brown. Yep. I mean, he had 8 sacks on the interior of that defensive line last year. You know, like you gotta entertain that. Like, continue to make a strength a strength. Like Cincinnati Bengals got after the quarterback like quite often between Hendrickson, Ogunjobi, Sam Hubbard. Like these guys, they created pressure. Like I do think, their front 4 was good. They didn't have to send a lot of heat. Hubbard was a beast. Another Brownie.
Harambe.
Oh, he's from Columbus.
No,
right?
he's a Buckeye.
Yeah. I do have Eli Apple on this list. Again, he outplayed his contract to me. Another telling stat here is he actually played 87% of the defensive snaps last year.
Wow.
So he was relied upon. He was on the field a lot. Now, part of this is because, like I mentioned before, Trey Waynes just can't be trusted. He's literally played 5 games in 2 years, and he was like a prize free agent acquisition from Minnesota once upon a time for them. That's it. That's really, I mean, maybe like on the interior and defensive line, like BJ Hill, who's still young, good run stuffer, 26 years old. But other than that, I'm blowing up this offensive line. Like I did say, like, hey, Quentin Spain, just because he played 90% of the snaps, but that's just because he played 90% of the snaps, right? Like, and maybe there's a little continuity there. But I think with what I'm about to describe in terms of like cap casualties, existing cap, they have the opportunity to upgrade the offensive line, and that should be where their entire focus is. But I do also, I'm not stupid. Like, we don't talk about the draft here. But they're going to address some of this in the draft, and they're going to address some depth at the offensive line. But priority number 1 in terms of cap casualties, Trey Waynes. I've mentioned him 3 times before even getting to this segment. That's a $10.8 million savings. Got to go. He actually carries the highest cap number on the team, and he's played in 5 games in 2 years.
Wow. Best ability is availability.
We love that at the We're Talking Football.
That is it, bro. It is the truth. He's got to go. This next one might be a little bit of a. Actually, I won't go there. I'll say, in keeping in line.
Reach for it.
I'm gonna end with how I reach for this. Okay. So I'm just I'm repositioning my things here. In continuing with remaking the offensive line, center Trey Hopkins. Almost $6 million in savings. Blow it up. It's just shaky, right? Like if you have this opportunity, like blow it all up. You're going to draft some depth. If we talked about the draft, which we don't, you're going to draft some depth. Go find 2 or 3 guys that you can plug in right away. Let's be very clear about this. They don't have to go get the best of the best to be an upgrade with what they put out there last year, but they're in position for 1 or 2 of those slots on the offensive line to be in contention for the best of the best. And here's the good news, Cincinnati Bengal fans, you're a contender, right? Like now you're a destination that people might want to actually go to, not just to get a contract, but to legitimately compete for a Super Bowl, which is all of these superstars really want to do because they're going to get paid anyway, but where are they going to get paid and win? So Trey Hopkins, you got to go. Here's might be the controversial one, Tyler Boyd. So it's 7.3 million pre-June 1, 8.7 post-June 1 designation. Again, a lot of money. Honestly, there's a lot of teams I would tell you I would love to have Tyler Boyd as my number 3 wide receiver in the NFL.
I'd like to have him as my number 2.
Yeah, he's a good
Ben. He would be your number 1.
He would be our number 1. That literally, he would be our number 1.
Yeah.
I need a wide receiver.
1, 2. Why am I laughing?
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's what makes this controversial, right? Like I have this guy, but let's be very clear. I mean, Jamar Chase is a superstar, right? They have rising stars at this position. Like Tyler Boyd has almost been relegated to a slot receiver. And I know they want to air that hoe out. Like I know they want to throw the ball, but you can go find a younger, cheaper, adequate replacement and use that cap room a little bit more strategically. Go ahead, Lou, counter it because I know you've been waiting to.
Yeah, but why? But like, why not just run him back? They have the cap space, and you gotta understand. You're talking about Jamar Chase. You're talking about T. Higgins. They're like one ACL away or one ankle, Achilles away from then who's going to be their number 2. So I disagree. I think you keep Boyd for 1 more year. You run it back, and they
aren't you the one that said you'd rather get rid of somebody a year early than a year late?
Yeah, but his play is not
that, right, fellas? You heard him say that?
Exactly.
He can confirm it.
Yeah, but his play is not declining. It's just the opportunity. He's still a really. Yep. I think he had I don't think he had a drop last year all season. No, until the
Super Bowl.
Awful time.
Down or something or third down. Yeah.
So like, it's not like he's not getting up there in age. It's not that his play is being bad. I think you run that back.
I'm not going to disagree with that. I'm just saying on paper he's a prime candidate, and when you think of like target share, what you can plug in there, and you got Joey Burrow, man. Like, I mean, you got to feel comfortable that if we can keep him upright, please, we don't say Joe Cool in this house because that is Joe Montana.
Very true.
We take a lot of offense to that. But in this particular scenario, if you have faith in Joe Cool and Joey Burrow, you can get an offensive line that protects them, like I could probably get similar production out of somebody else and it not cost me as much. I'm playing devil's advocate here. I think it's a hard pill to swallow. Like we just heard two people say he might be our number one wide receiver on our NFL football team, but he is clearly the number 3 wide receiver on his own football team. So something to consider. Target free agents. Told you they need a remake on this offensive line. They could go play with anybody. They make these cap cuts based on their cap room. They can go flirt with Teron Armstead at left tackle. Riley Reef, goodbye. You're not even a priority to re-sign. Needed upgrade. I mean, Armstead, gave up 1 sack and I think like almost 270 pass blocking snaps last year. Go flirt with this man. Bring in the best of the best. You need to upgrade a guard. Brandon Scherf, Laken Tomlinson, Connor Williams, you name it. They can flirt with all of these guys. And even if they find 1 or 2 of these top echelon positions, like it's a tremendous upgrade over what they're putting out there right now. Center, Ryan Jensen, Ben Jones, like Ben Jones' age, Ryan Jensen's age. That doesn't scare me because I'm competing right now, right?
Why
like
not? Yeah, why not? But also, you were talking about center. Why not the center from the Ravens? We just talked about he's going to be Bradley Bozeman. He's going to be in high demand. And why not steal from your rival?
Bring him out. Anybody. Like this is the point that I'm trying to make. This is a very envious position to be in. You just represented your conference in the Super Bowl. You have cap space. Your quarterback is still on a rookie contract. Arguably, 2 of your best offensive weapons are on rookie contracts right now. Like, go buy the Super Bowl. Go buy it. Like you're in a better position than the LA Rams were to go do it and go buy the Super Bowl. Like go buy the Super Bowl and it doesn't mortgage your future. This is your window. We know your window is your rookie quarterback's contract. Go fucking do it. And here I'll do you one better. I said they got to upgrade the backfield. Why is JC Jackson not being mentioned?
He is. No, he is. There's definitely rumblings of JC Jackson.
All in.
Bengals.
I'm sliding the chips all in right now.
Let's keep that quiet.
Don't Andrew Luck Joe Burrow. That's all I have to say.
They're
They
on pace to do it,
man, at all costs. And he hurt his ACL in the or MCL in the Super Bowl too. Like you could tell he was not right those last couple drives. And I just have that feeling that that they're going to go down that road if they don't. If they don't spend or they don't spend capital. Like you have to put all of your chips into the offensive line if you want this guy to be healthy, because you want who's their backup? Ryan Lindley or who is it?
I couldn't even tell you. It's not even a topic for conversation.
He's not Joe Burrow or anywhere close to Joe Burrow. I can tell you that. Also, why was Joe Mixon not on the 4th down play? Last play of the Super Bowl. I just want to know.
I've always said the Bengals won despite their coach, and I think their coach is awful. So I know they got.
I'm actually really happy Zach Taylor got an extension because he's riding the coattail of Joe Burrow's talent, and it's going to show in the next couple of years. Like he literally rode Joe Burrow's talent. Also, they had a pretty favorable road to the Super Bowl. One thing, if I was the Bengals, I would be aware of the Super Bowl hangover, which is why I think with all those free agents, it's going to be important for them to go out and, pay guys and get other guys in there. So like they can avoid the Super Bowl hangover because they ain't playing a 4th place schedule anymore. Like they played a 4th place schedule last year. So they're playing first. They're playing first place teams. Like they're going to have a tough road.
Yeah. Listen, Super Bowl, talking to 49ers fan, right? I saw what 2020 did to us, and it just does. It's a mist that does weird things, injuries, different schedules, different layer of competition. But what's different about
everyone's A game,
is nobody's sleeping on you anymore. And I'd make the same argument with the LA Rams that they just had a favorable playoff schedule. Saw a couple divisional opponents that they see 3 times a year. Like even the 49ers, like who's had their number, it's just like math just says like the 49ers should have lost that game. And they were dominating that game, right? Like when all said and done, it's like they didn't have to go through the cream of the crop to get there, the Rams. And the same outside of like, I would say the Rams had to go through the hottest team in football at that point in time, but math was in their favor. The Bengals outside of like, I think the Titans were pretenders as the number 1 seed,
Absolutely.
right? I think we could all argue they're probably the worst number 1 AFC seed that we've seen in a long time. But the good news is like,
Raiders shouldn't have been there.
Yeah. Well, Don, you don't have to argue that to Lou.
Yeah, I just wanted to. I didn't mean to. My bad. That was a stab to the heart. My bad.
Too soon, first of all, and secondly, we are playing chess, not checkers, my friend. We wanted that third
chess, not checkers.
We wanted that third because we finished in third place then because of that. We got a better schedule this year now because of that. So
exactly, we play you guys.
Playing the long game.
Schedule.
Hey, yo, Scott, that was a hell of a game though this year.
Oh, it was frustrating, but it was a hell of a game.
Yeah.
You know what wasn't a hell of a game? Week 3.
Ben, enlighten me. What was week 3?
Week 3, Scott and I flew to Cleveland, Ohio, and I got to watch Justin Fields put on his ass 9 times.
I do remember that week.
That
was his second start, right? That was his second start.
It was his first because the week before Andy Dalton got hurt.
Yeah.
So his first career start, I was excited. I'm like, you know what? I'm all in. And then we did nothing to scheme any kind of cognitive offense.
Not Justin Fields' fault.
He was
not Justin Fields' fault. Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy's fault.
The best video of that weekend happened. I think it was Saturday night. The best video of that weekend was Saturday night. We got on the jumbotron at Progressive Field, slammed 2 Miller Lights.
We did.
Awesome.
Cleveland legends.
It was all downhill for the Bears after that.
I'm gonna get out of the Bengals here. I'm just gonna say that like in normal circumstances, I think they have the ability to circumvent that Super Bowl hangover because of where they're sitting, right? Like like if the Rams had lost that Super Bowl the way they went all in, I would say they were fucked in 2022 moving forward.
I would say they
like,
wouldn't make the playoffs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spicy,
right? Like it just happens.
There's no way the Ravens
struggled again this year. Like there's just Scott doesn't want to hear that. Scott doesn't want to hear that. He just went deaf Helen Keller on us. Dumb and mute.
Sometimes you gotta pretend.
Yeah, sometimes you got to. I get it. So I'm gonna get out of the Bengals. I'm gonna kick it over to Lou. Lou, final piece here for you is
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then we're gonna get out of the AFC. We're gonna get into the NFC, and Ben, it is your time to shine. So you got to hang with us for at least one more team here, and then it's your moment, buddy.
We're holding on.
Go check that Wi-Fi right quick, just to make sure.
Check the Wi-Fi real quick.
I'll make this quick for you, Ben. I am talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers here. No longer the steel curtain, more like the chamois cloths now because of the changing of the guards that we've talked about. No longer is this a Ravens and Steelers division. It's now the Browns and Bengals. So cap space for the Steelers. Shockingly, they have $28 million, which ranks them top 10 in the NFL, right around the 8th spot. Their top needs, elephant in the room, quarterback.
One more year.
I know Scott.
Jimmy G.
That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
He deserves a revenge tour. Get hit on national television over the head.
Jordan Love.
Well, that could possibly happen, but I doubt it though. But I don't think that. We'll get to that later. Why Jimmy G will not be in Pittsburgh. So other than quarterback, their entire offensive line, they tried this, experiment with Zach Banner at the left tackle, and that's just not a winning formula. And outside of Kendrick Green, there's no one on the offensive line you can really build upon. So they need influx of talent amongst that front, the front of the offensive line, and they also need some cornerbacks too. So some of their priority free agents, they got TikTok Smith-Schuster, their 25-year-old wide receiver. He, after a hot start his first 2 years, Pittsburgh felt comfortable enough to let Antonio Brown, to leave. They traded him away, obviously because of his antics. And there was a discussion: is Juju Smith-Schuster, his production, predicated on Antonio Brown still being there, or because Antonio Brown was such a threat? And then Antonio Brown was not going to be there, so Juju Smith-Schuster was going to get all this attention. Guess what? Yeah, it was predicated on Antonio Brown taking away all the deep coverage, the double coverage away from him, because it's been a disaster the last couple of years with Juju Smith-Schuster. So I think, you know what, that's a divorce that's going to happen. I actually think Juju ends up, we'll talk about it later, but perhaps a little out west, not here, but another team that can use him that rhymes with Kansas City Schmeefs. So
that's a quick plug for our AFC NFC West show.
Yeah,
that's happening
exactly.
in a couple days.
So Trey Turner, 28-year-old guard, he gave up 7 sacks last year. They can't bring him back. He was awful. Chukwuma Okafor, 24-year-old right tackle. He had 11 penalties. Once again, he's more probably rotational or swing tackle. They can't make him a starter, so I don't think they bring him back either. So possible cap casualties. I think all their players are really replaceable. I
would say everyone but Najee.
I'm not a Najee fan, but all these people I'm going to mention, I feel like, you know, you can get rid of them. Zach Banner, like I said, $5 million cap savings.
Scott's loving it.
$5 million cap savings, $1.6 million in dead money. Tyson Alulalu, 34-year-old interior defensive line, minimal dead money, less than $1 million. Cap savings, $2.5 million. Cameron Sutton, 27-year-old cornerback, once again minimal dead money, $700,000. Cap savings of $4.5 million. They got Joe Schobert. It's funny because their linebackers, the middle of that Pittsburgh defense, I feel has been real weak. Devin Bush played real well his rookie year and then has been downhill ever since. And they acquired Joe Schobert, who is a tackling machine. You know, he's had 100 tackles over the last 5 years. But you have to understand, tackling doesn't just mean you're a playmaker. It doesn't mean you're a good player. I know some people.
The guys in front of you don't know how to tackle.
Yeah, so I just think you have to be wary of looking just at statistics there. So he's a solid veteran presence. So they could part ways with him and bolster that interior, of that defense right there in the middle of that defense. They would save $7.8 million from him and have a dead money hit of $1.8 million. So some free agent targets. Once again, we're going to start with the elephant in the room here. Quarterback, all right? You're talking about Jimmy G. He's not going on there. Tomlin literally said mobile quarterbacks are the wave of the future. Having mobility at the position is something that would be desirable. Jimmy G ain't moving.
Get Kenny Pickett in there.
He's moving from San Francisco. I just don't. He just ain't moving in that pocket.
It's just that, like, the last couple of years, Tomlin has been a slave to the corpse, the decrepit corpse of Big Ben. Not being able to move, and I feel like he's like, seeing what all the other teams that's been having success, Josh Allen, Herbert, Patrick Mahomes. These are all people in his conference, all teams that have mobile quarterbacks. I'm not saying running first quarterbacks, but mobile quarterbacks. And he looks over twice a year and sees Lamar Jackson, killing him too. So I just feel like he's not going back where your traditional, pocket passer there.
Do you ever think that there was an injury that Big Ben wishes that he could have had? Because he's injury jealous of everybody.
Yeah.
Is there ever one that you think that he wishes he could have had? He could be like, that's probably it. He could be like, dang, I could have had that.
Yeah.
People would have felt bad.
Patella tendon, by far. Patella tendon tear, easily. No hesitation.
I feel like, Lou, you're sniffing at like Marcus Mariota or
I swear to God. No, I don't think Deshaun, to be honest.
Mitch?
His stuff
Money
gets
Mitch.
settled tomorrow though, so like he could be traded.
So Weston, apparently the Panthers are sending pro scouts out there to his jury, to his
live
jury.
streaming.
Yeah, they're sending pro scouts out there. They want to see how he's looking.
That's what they're doing instead of March Madness.
So,
What the NFL is, man.
Yo, Weston, you know me well. It's Marcus Mariota. I definitely think they bring in Mariota, draft a rookie quarterback. I think we're not talking about the draft, but if we were, I think Willis would be their apple of their eye. There's no way he gets to them, I think. And so that's why they probably will do a Mariota and then a Kenny Pickett and just go from there. But once again, we're not talking about the draft. Look for them to get a little faster on the boundary of when it comes to the cornerback position. I think a name to keep in mind is Dante Jackson. He's fast, he's explosive, and he's really good in zone coverage. I think he would come fairly cheap too. So Dante Jackson is a player I think they can target at the cornerback position. Terrell Edmonds, their starting strong safety, is a free agent, and his play doesn't warrant Pittsburgh bringing him really back. I think Marcus May, who's coming off an injury, so he's not going to be too expensive, provides them that versatility that they're going to covet, because Flores, don't forget Flores, who's now defensive assistant well, is it? Let me tell you why. Flores was the coach of Miami. I'm going to tell you why.
Okay, go ahead.
And him and Minka did not get along. Minka and Flores always butted heads because Flores wanted to drop Minka in the box more of like a nickel linebacker. So that should be an interesting dynamic. He's one of the best players on that defense. Not this year per se, but like the years prior, he was fantastic. But I think a Marcus May, who come cheap, provides that versatility. You can move Minka around. If he does drop in the box, that should be interesting. Would be a fantastic get for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And their offensive line, like I said, they need to improve their run blocking. There's been some things, that they want to try to go to more of like an RPOs type of offense. Mm-hmm. Like I said, they're trying to get more the mobility from the quarterback position. So why not do that? So Brian Allen of the Rams, he's really good in zone schemes, would be a perfect fit there in Pittsburgh. Alex Kappa of Tampa Bay, who excels in run blocking. You got Morgan Moses, that you can kick him to the right tackle, who's another veteran that provides a boost to the running game. He graded out above 65 per Pro Football Focus as a run blocker. So you got to tinker with that offensive line because they have really no one out other than I said Kendrick Green. But those are some of the players I really think they're going to target.
So real quick, I made the comment before about how like these general managers and coaches are smarter than us, and this whole time,
I disagree.
I'm staring at this over the cap, looking at TJ Watt's contract, and if TJ was cut pre-June 1,
just signed
his dead money cap number is $72.4 million. Like, not that like you're not cutting the best player in the NFL, but like you still look at those things and you're like, how'd you let that happen? You know what I mean? Like,
like what if you had to?
A lot of this to I mean, like, listen, like we all know salary cap is fictitious and like you can move it and do certain things.
Yes.
But like when you still look at something like that, it is like rather alarming. Like when I look at their overall spend, like legitimately, this is what it breaks down to based on the people who are on their roster right now. 54% of their cap right now, and they only have this to 77%. So 54 out of the 74% that they have spent and based on what's unavailable is on the defensive side of the ball. Mm-hmm. And Watt is like 20% of that. Like, it's just like when you start getting into these numbers, that's when it becomes hard to put together like an entire team, right? Like the number I just talked about, a cap hit for TJ Watt, that's like literally what you expect like Aaron Rodgers to carry. Like you see Matt Ryan carries, like, and this is when it becomes really, really hard. But we're going to talk about the Packers in a minute, and I'm talking about how difficult that is. Lou, go ahead.
What do you think Nick Bosa's cap hit is going to be? You're going to be right there, right behind.
Massive, bro. Massive. Because it's just like pay the next. I
don't have to worry about edge rushers.
Like, what's Myles Garrett's next contract going to look like, right? It's going to be ridiculous.
We already got him for 5 years, 125. We got him on a good bargain, like, so I don't care about that.
2 years later, you're looking at it, you're like, that's basically free, right? Like, compared to what other defensive ends are paying.
Did he sign? I think he signed, like, was it right before Joey or – God, I forget who signed.
He did sign before Joey because
right after
Joey. Obviously, Joey had to like try to one up it. Yeah, but hey, I agree with you, man. Yeah. Like not having your edge rushers locked to a long-term deal, I couldn't relate, man.
To be fair, Miles Garrett
you guys have edge rushers on your team? guys have edge rushers still? I didn't know you could do that.
Speaking of that, I think this is a great segue for Ben now. We got to hear from Ben in the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, Ben, this is your time, dude. You've been I'm going to tell you how long you've been patient. You've been patient for 1 hour, 14 minutes, and at this point, 42 seconds. This is your time. We are in the NFC North, which I think is like the most classic NFL division, right?
Yeah,
like when
like
I think
Lombardi
of these
Dallas.
4 teams, like this is what I think of when I think of the NFL and like the legacy there. So you have been a patient individual. It is your time, my friend. Let's lead in with the Chicago Bears. And remind you, this is your division. Yes, let it all out. We're gonna rip you apart, but lay it all out. But this is also your division. So as Lou and I go through the Packers, Vikings, and I'm going to wrap up the Detroit Lions. That's how we're going to end this tonight.
That's fair.
You know this division better than we do, buddy. So let it fly, brother.
So what makes this very interesting is I had like my notes prepared a few days ago, and of course we had to tear literally everything up because everything that I thought I knew about the 2022 Chicago Bears offseason literally just went out the window within the last 6 hours.
Called out of work, like I got to replan. I got a podcast.
I thought about asking him work if I could leave early because of emotional damage, but we now have $28.9 million in cap space, ninth best in the league. Similar to a lot of the teams that we talked about tonight, offensive line is a key issue, and it's not that some of these guys play bad; it's that some of these guys are so soft. The one thing that from this past season, besides just getting to watch Justin Fields, that I think about a lot is I think it was the Monday Night Football game at Soldier Field. It was Bears-Vikings. Vikings guys like shoving Fields and stuff like that. So Tevin Jenkins goes up and he shoves him right back. And here comes Jermaine Ifedi, we're going to get into a brawl. No, he shoves our own guy. I'm like, cut his ass. Get this son of a bitch out of Chicago. I'm done with this. And
terrible game, by the way.
From that moment, by the way, yes, it was horrible. I do not like Jermaine Ifedi after that. I think he's a free agent. If not, I hope he gets cut. But Ryan Poles is kind of, outside of the Khalil Mack trade today, I'm still okay with Ryan Poles, despite him ripping my heart out today and throwing it on the ground and stomping on it a few times. I think he said a few things leading up to now where I think I kind of know where we're going. We don't talk about the draft, but if we were, that's where we're going. We're going with offensive line. We're going to, with all this cap space, I think we're going to see him try to patch some holes with the offensive line, but we'll get to that when we start talking about some of those free agents that I think we're going to be in on. Obviously, talking about Tyler Boyd, we don't have a true number one wide receiver on this team. Darnell Mooney's good, but this reminds me exactly of Brandon Marshall. That's throwing it back to the Jay Cutler years. Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey. Like, he's the Alshon Jeffrey. He got all the targets because Brandon Marshall was always double covered. That's what Allen Robinson was for this team. Allen Robinson not getting the franchise tag, I'm okay with it. You could just
year
tell.
In a row. Yeah,
Literally.
You better be okay with that.
I'm okay with that. You could tell the guy just did not want to be there. And you know what? Quite frankly, how can I blame him? We've tagged him again, and then it just looked like, again, coaching schemes. It looked like Matt Nagy just said, Allen Robinson, yeah, fuck that guy. We're not going to throw it to him. Don't even look at him. Because, I full-heartedly, I apologize to everyone who drafted Allen Robinson in fantasy football this year. But to be fair, you drafted a Bears player that wasn't Dave Montgomery, so that's kind of also on you. I can't claim that. No defense for that.
Bad. For fantasy.
Yeah, yes. I will say Khalil Herbert. I like having a good backup running back. Damian Williams, don't think we need to bring him back. I like Khalil Herbert as the backup. Mm-hmm. But obviously, offensive line and wide receiver, I think the top two needs for this team. It's going to be all offense moving forward. Like I said, if we had to be talking about the draft, I would talk about that. But defense. Defense is just
back when it's time to talk about the draft, Ben, because I know that's where the focus is. So
yes,
we'll give you
that's all I have to look forward to as a Bears fan is the
Ben.
draft.
Let me ask you a question:
now.
with your first round pick, who do you? Oh no,
we don't have that.
I know.
Okay, but to be fair, I would make that trade. Seeing he just heard it. To be fair, knowing what I know right now about the quarterbacks that are available at this moment, let's say we don't make that trade. We picked up Mitch Trubisky's fifth-year option. Let's say the season turned out the exact same way. Mitch Trubisky's most likely gone. Matt Nagy's gone. I would rather have made that trade with the Giants than drafted anyone that's available right now.
100%. I actually
Yes. Justin Fields would go number one overall right now.
Agree.
100%.
And
Yes.
Weston, we're not talking about the draft, but Weston and I have alluded to in the past about this draft. It's a weak draft, I personally
It's
think.
very weak.
I don't mind giving away draft picks this year.
Right.
Because I feel like it's really weak. It's just a meat and potatoes defensive
Mhm.
like interior defensive lineman draft. And I'm sorry. I think I agree with you. It's the fact that you're not missing out on anything, in my opinion.
Right. So I'm like, okay, well, that would have been our first round pick this year anyway. So I'm good with Justin Fields. I like having the two picks in the second round now because, it's like leading up to today, I was like, are we going wide receiver? Are we going O-line? Like, what are we going to do? Now we can address both. But we're not talking about the draft. So
No.
we're not talking about it. Obviously, right now, I think that Ryan Poles has decided that we're going to go younger and cheaper on defense. So I think that you're going to see he's going to plug some of the holes on defense because obviously he's not going to put the 32nd ranked defense out on the field this season. Like you got to put people on the field just to get asses in the seats. So, Akeem Hicks not coming back. There's no way he's coming back. Okay. Robert Quinn. Like I said, Robert Quinn could get moved. Wouldn't surprise me if he didn't get moved. We'll see what happens with that. Obviously, if we're trying to just save as much money as possible, I could see them moving him. I think right now I saw right before we started, the Bears have next offseason $123 million in cap space, which that to me has me ready to write this season off. Like, yeah, I'm ready for another 4 or 5 win season. We'll have a first round pick next year. Let's just see what happens in 2023.
Hey, you also have an extra 6th round too.
We do. We have an extra 6th round pick next year. That is another draft pick. We will build. It's like Ryan said, we will build through the draft. We're taking the North back, just not this year, asterisk. Secondary help. I love Jalen Johnson. I loved seeing him get to be the number 1 cornerback this year. The fact that Thomas Graham Jr. was just sitting on our bench for like 12 games this year kind of pissed me off because then he came in Seattle and like, where was this? It's just been at CB2. We've had a revolving door, and I feel like that's just been the constant issue with our secondary ever since we let Adrian Amos go to Green Bay for nothing. Eddie Jackson, kind of a bum. Can be, cannot be. He's a ball hawk, though. Don't forget, he's a ball hawk. Don't know if he had any interceptions this year. I have to look that up. Priority free
I'll be
agents.
Stat boy for you right now.
I appreciate that. Priority free agents, I think number 1 on this list has to be James Daniels. If we're talking about the offensive line, that's the only guy that I would like to have back, with the exception of Cody Whitehair. James Daniel, he's only 24 years old. I think you have to keep him around just because, the Bengals, if I'm an offensive lineman, look how much money the Bengals have to spend. They were just in the Super Bowl. That's my first stop. How much can you pay me? And then I'm going to see other teams. Tayshaun Gibson, he's 31. He's on the wrong side of 30, but we don't really have anyone else that's set to play safety besides Eddie Jackson. And he can't do them.
Who hasn't had an interception in 2 seasons?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I needed that. Yes. Eddie Jackson, I would say he might get traded, but I don't know who would want that contract right now. Jakeem Grant is probably coming back just because, we traded for him, and then we need someone at the return specialist. When you think of the Chicago Bears, you think of Devin Hester, you have to have a great return specialist, which, by the way, not a first ballot Hall of Famer, pisses me off.
Hall of Famer Devin Hester to you?
Yes, should have been first ballot. I will never not be mad about that. But similar to kind of like when you were talking about the Bengals, like we've got some free agents, but there's not really anyone I need back besides James Daniels, honestly. Like I think with the cap space that we have, if we were talking about the draft, you could answer some of those questions with that. So there's nothing I really need back besides James Daniels. Cap casualties, I think your biggest 2 that we're looking at right now is Eddie Goldman. 2020 he sat out with the COVID concerns. That's fine. I'm not COVID shaming. But then last year, trying to get him back to camp was like pulling teeth of a little kid at the dentist. He didn't want to come back, and I said we should just cut him last year. Then eventually came back. All of Chicago was pumped. We're like, yes, we got our Eddie Goldman back. We got our guy right up the middle. He's going to pair with Akeem Hicks. This is going to be monstrous. Guy sucked. 28 years old. I feel bad for Florida State. Florida State just has not had a very good week. Nick Foles, gone. Please, gone. I can't. I can't anymore. I cannot.
Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles to you.
Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles to me. I hate him ever since 2018 still because of the double doink game. He was our third string quarterback last year. He was a healthy scratch every week. He got paid $3 million to hold a clipboard. Actually, I think he got paid more than that.
Dude is out there doing cardio.
Yo, Ben, they should trade him to the Commanders.
I know if we traded him to the Commanders,
no, they should. They
still should. I was on the board with trading him to the Colts last year. I was good with trading him to the Colts last year because they could have used that to motivate Carson Wentz. I think that Ron Rivera would benefit greatly from that. But yes, yeah, Doi interceptions. But yes, Eddie Goldman, Nick Foles, get him out of here. That would free up about $9 million. That would do great for our salary cap. You could add a stud somewhere with that. Maybe not top tier, but maybe middle tier player anywhere else.
Like a Khalil Mack.
I'm never not going to be sad about that. I said it earlier and I'll say it again. I had just gotten the news that baseball was back. I had 20 minutes of happiness before I saw that Khalil Mack got traded, and I wanted to go home early. I said, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be at work anymore. That's my bad.
I believe they refer to that as the other shoe dropped.
It did. It really did. It really did. Target free agents, you can't just have Justin Fields on the roster as one quarterback. So I wouldn't mind seeing us just sign someone less than $1 million to be a backup. I don't need to pay someone $10 million like Ryan Pace decided to give Andy Dalton to start a game and a half and then be the backup for the rest of the year. Don't need to give out that kind of money. Offensive line, some of the names that have been thrown around tonight: Brandon Sheriff, Ryan Jensen, Alex Kappa, James Daniels, Bradley Bozeman. Any of those guys could come in. You just slide Cody Whitehair out over to guard. There you go. You got a great center guard combo. Tackles, I'm good with this year. Tevin Jenkins for a full season. Larry Borum. I think Larry Borum was a great 5th round pick. Like, he stepped in. Jason Peters, we lost him that first, I think it was the first or second drive, something like that, in that first week in LA. And Larry Borum just came out of nowhere. So I'll gladly let him start at right tackle for a year while we get that cap situation for next year. Wide receiver, I do think that we're going to sign a wide receiver. I don't think we're going to sign anybody big now because obviously Khalil Mack getting traded, that's signaling to the NFL, hey, we're not competing next year. Like, we're just trying to field a team. So maybe you get someone that you can sign to a longer-term contract, pay him a little less, but spread it out over time. Maybe like a Christian Kirk, a DJ Chark, Michael Gallup with the ACL injury. Russell Gage even, I would take that. Just someone that can not complement Darnell Mooney, but just make it so Darnell Mooney's not our only obvious option. And, of course, if we were talking about the draft, I would like David Bell from Purdue, but that's just me. And if I had to bet right now, if I could go to Las Vegas right now, I would bet that either Alan Lazard or Marquez Valdez-Scantling, either of them end up with the Chicago Bears because of the Luke Getsy connection. I had Devontae Adams on this list until they franchise tagged him because, like, you have to at least make a run at him.
Got to sniff it.
You have to. Yep. You have to take someone away from your in-conference rival. You have to.
Yeah, there's some
especially in the same division. Yeah, but one of those guys will be a Chicago Bear. I book it, lock it in. One of those guys will be a Bear.
I'm going to Vegas for the draft, and I'm going to lock it in.
Lock it in for me.
MVS wanted, I think the rumors are $10 to $12 million. If that's a year. So if that's the case, he's pricing himself out of Green Bay.
Yeah. They have like no money as it is already after the last week.
He could cost $8 a year, and he's pricing himself out of Green Bay right now. Like, we're going to talk about this in a quick second.
Yes. As much as it sucks to lose Khalil Mack, he is 31. The great choice that I would have to replace him, maybe not as impactful as Khalil Mack, but someone that could come in and play the same position, Derek Barnett from the Eagles, I think he's younger. I think that if we wanted to throw money at defense, he could come in and at least give you the same kind of production that we've seen from the Khalil Mack of the last couple years. It's not going to be 2018 Khalil Mack, but he's going to come in and at least draw some attention from opposing offensive lines.
Yeah.
What about? For me, this would be an interesting scenario because now Chargers don't have a need for edge. Uchenna Nwosu. It's true.
Yeah.
I would take him.
He flashed at the end of the year. He's all about getting pressures, not sacks, though. So Mr. Almost Sack your guy there. So I just feel like
steal your girl.
That's okay. I just need him to draw guys because if we do keep Robert Quinn, he'll be the one that gets the sacks now.
I can see him going out there in Chicago.
We just need to field the team.
Herein lies the rub, and I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Ben, you just called it out. The dismissing of Khalil Mack is the terminology that I would use, does signify to the world like
we're not
2022 is not our year.
I've accepted that.
And that's a hard thing to accept for fans. But this is a good thing, right? Like to me, this is a good thing because it's like you're not an organization that's going to say, well, fuck it. We're just going to throw all the money out and we're going to spend a bunch of money on a bunch of no names.
Yep.
Like you're not doing that. Like you're trying to do it right, which is a nice change. But that makes it really difficult to be a player in free agency this year because big name players want to go. What you need to find, and I'm going to talk about this with the Lions, is like a couple of those like budding stars that you can sell on that like, dude, you want to sign now because you want to be here in 2 years. You want to be part of this in 3 years.
I think that's what helps us on offense is Justin Fields is a lot sexier of a target than playing with Mitch Trubisky was.
And that's the sales pitch, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the sales pitch on offense is like, we're almost there and we're going to get a couple pieces over the next 2 years. Again, you're probably looking at a top 10 pick in the draft next year and what will inevitably has to be a deeper draft than this year. You have the most, in my opinion, you have the most important position in all of sports accounted for right now. And again, like Justin Fields gets a full pass on 2021 from me.
Yes, he does.
A full pass, right? Like you had a regime that should have been gone the previous year. They shouldn't even have had this year.
No.
Like no competency whatsoever on the offensive side of the ball outside of like David Montgomery and his performance. Shout out to David Montgomery, won me another fantasy football championship. But like these are the things that but that's a tough sell, right? Like I'm just like making this up, right? Like if you wanted I don't know, fill in the blank, right? Like you just want
pick any player that you want.
And it's hard to be like, hey, yo, come here. The only thing I can do is pay you. That's it. Like I can't promise you to compete. I can't.
Well, that's why we can't go get these top tier guys.
Devontae
like, if I was
Adams,
going to a
watch
meeting,
me come here. Devontae Adams is going to make all the money in the world. He wants to go win a Super Bowl. Like he wants to go win a Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
What do I have to tell Amari Cooper if I want to go out and get Amari Cooper? Because Bears Twitter, they're like, we could get Amari Cooper now. I'm like, why would he come here?
It's just the money.
Twitter with every quarterback.
Yeah.
See, I don't mean to be a dick, but I know
you're gonna be.
Yeah.
That's cue for I'm about to be a dick.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yes. So I feel like Weston and Ben, you're talking so much certainty about Justin Fields, and you're going to give him a pass from 2021. But in my opinion, what have you seen from him in 2021 that you know that you have the guy from the future? Because I wouldn't say that with certainty at all, to be honest with you. So I'm just trying to be real with you right now. Like, what have you guys seen from him that like, I'm like, okay, this is our guy for the future. We'll be able to, like, how's that? I still don't see how he's an attractive option for, offensive free agents until he balls out this year. I'm sorry. That's just me.
No. So Ben, before I let you respond to that, because I'm going to let you respond to it, I'm going to clarify this statement for just a second. This is coming from a guy who has Justin Herbert as the quarterback of his NFL team. That I spent all of 2021 convincing Lou that Justin Herbert is the truth. He just didn't want to believe it. He just didn't want to believe it.
No.
You want Tua?
Yes.
You want Tua?
Yes.
Okay.
Tell him. Admit
You
it.
almost had Tua.
Admit it, Lou. Admit it.
All right. Let me talk. I did want Tua first and foremost in the draft, but I was not bummed about Justin Herbert. What Weston is alluding to the fact is that we did a top 10 quarterbacks, and I did not of going into the year last year. not what transpired this year. It was after Justin Herbert's rookie year. And it was his rookie year, and they were changing offensive schemes, a lot of personnel changes. I'm like, I can't put him as a top 10 quarterback going into this year with so many question marks and certainty. I also was really kind of like Boomer-esque. I'm like, I'm not putting a rookie in my top 10 right now until I see what he does year 2. Because I personally think you can't judge a player until year 2, because that's when defense.
Who put him in their top 10?
Well, okay.
Who put him in their top 10? Who
You
put
did.
him in their top 10? Say it.
The Chargers training staff when they stabbed Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I am taking a stab at my colleague here. And not that he was a doubter of Justin Herbert. He just never wanted to believe it because he doesn't think the Chargers deserve nice things. Like, they don't deserve Khalil Mack. They don't deserve these things.
I can relate.
It's like, how can your team do something smart? Like, this makes no sense.
So, Ben,
why I'm ready to give Justin Fields the free pass on the whole year. The reason I'm ready to do so is because I was in Jacksonville for week 16 of the 2020 season. Since that game, four quarterbacks have started Matt Nagy's offense. All 4 of them had looked the exact same. I absolutely hate the memes of Mitch Trubisky took Matt Nagy's offense to the playoffs twice. Technically, in the world of technicalities, yes, but you can't tell me 2018 wasn't that entire defense. That defense scored more points than any other defense that season. 2018 was the defense. The 2020 season when we played the Saints in the Superdome, that was the 8-8. That was because the Cardinals just blew it. But yes, when you've seen Mitch Trubisky, Andy Dalton, and Nick Foles play in the same offense and they've all looked like Justin Fields, I am ready to say that that's the offense and not the player.
But what have you seen? What have you seen from?
I've just seen the flashiness. I love flashiness. I know that that's not a quarterback stat. In the words of Green Bay Packers Twitter, Pete Butthead, is that his name? Is that his name? Bukowski.
Yeah,
I don't know
Weston
his name.
Doesn't like him probably.
I don't like him. I really do not like him. He not a nice guy. He deserves jail. He just makes it all about hating on Justin Fields because he's a Jordan Love secret lover. But I don't know what it is. I just, as someone, Scott knows when you find a quarterback, you know what it is. When you find a guy and you think that this is finally the guy, when you've gone through as many quarterbacks as we have, you need to cling on to something. It's really sad when I'm pretty sure we've had close to 20 different quarterbacks in the same span that the team up north has had 2.
Yeah.
It's very sad. It's hard. It's really hard. So we finally get someone that it looks like they can play, and we buy in. This is what we do in Chicago. So I have to keep the faith.
Okay, so it's hope.
It is hope.
It's accuracy. It's his accuracy and his football IQ level. Like to know when the pocket collapse, and like Justin Fields is a mobile quarterback, but he doesn't use his legs as like his number one weapon. Like he uses them when that pocket breaks, and he knows when to use them because he has them every single play.
I mean, we played Weston knows that one play that we've had against you guys at Soldier Field this past year.
Yep.
That guy, he should have had a 10-yard sack, and he somehow turned that into like a 30-yard touchdown run.
Yep.
It was insane.
And then the accuracy on the deep ball, and the one play that always like sticks out is like the 65-yard pass in the I think it was the Sugar Bowl against Clemson to Olave, where Olave like tiptoes in the end zone. It's like 35.
If we could somehow get Olave, that'd be so great.
It's like one of the greatest deep balls that you ever see.
We could just
trade
the number 2, the second pick we just got.
It's the Russell Wilson deep ball. It looks exactly the same coming out of the field.
The same trajectory.
So
it's like
gives me Russell Wilson vibes.
He just has it.
Let me tell you what I've seen.
Hold on. Don't let Weston blow smoke up your ass, guys. Because during our draft coverage, we literally.
I'm a Buckeye.
He is a Buckeye. He originally hyped me up for this pick.
We literally both did not like Justin Fields. So
I was a bigger Trey Lance guy. I actually like
fair.
Trey Lance above all the other quarterbacks taken. That's just my opinion. I agree with your sentiment as well, right? Like Trey Lance would be the number 1 pick overall in the NFL draft this year had he been coming out based on who's on the board. But let me tell you what I did see in Fields that makes me a believer of him. It's his toughness. That man took an ass whooping all year. Never pointed a finger.
That Tampa Bay game was absolutely got
back into the huddle like a leadership capability. Something I've never seen from Tua Tagovailoa because he's never faced that adversity. He was this dude is softer than baby shit. Like Tua, and I'll tell you flat out, like, and Lou knows, like, we don't speak about Tua on this show because like he's not an NFL quarterback. He's not. And Lou, if I've not said this since day one, like not the dude, not the guy. He's left-handed. Tell me the last good left-handed quarterback. There's a reason. There's literally a reason.
That wasn't Michael Vick. Like
Boomer Esiason.
Yeah, Mark Brunell. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and these guys.
This isn't 1980.
And they're diamonds in a rough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason why you don't even see left-handed quarterbacks at the NCAA level. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's a thing. It's a thing. And Tua played with
Tebow.
the guys.
Tebow.
Yeah, exactly. They just played just because literally
baseball
brought
guy.
out the Jaguars as a fucking tight end. I have a Tim Tebow New York Mets t-shirt, by the way, just for the record. Still in the plastic. I haven't even taken it out. In this particular instance, though, like, what gives me belief in Fields is just, Scott, you hit the nail right on the head. I won't even go into the way the ball looks, the accuracy, the trajectory on the deep throw. It's the football IQ and it's the toughness. And in any position in the sport, like, I know in this day and age in the NFL, like, you're not even allowed to touch the quarterback. But guess what? He's not Tom Brady. He's not Drew Brees. He's not Patrick Mahomes. They're gonna let defensive ends fuck him up. He's a rookie quarterback who has to earn his stripes, and he got up time and time and time again. Is he going to be the best quarterback in the NFL? No, he's not. No. That's okay. We talk about like teams looking for quarterbacks. There's 32 teams in the NFL. I would argue that 25 of them every single year are analyzing what the field looks like to potentially upgrade that position, right? So as long as he's in that top 10 in the next 3 or 4 years, the Bears are in a good spot, and he has the ability to do it. Can you get the people around him? Can you get the coaching around him? There's a lot that's depending. But I'm telling you, like, what I've seen with him on the field, in between his ears, he's capable. Like, he is absolutely capable.
Can I give you your transition for the Green Bay Packers?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So in light of Aaron Rodgers getting $50 million a year for the next 4 years, I would just like to say that the last meaningful game that Aaron Rodgers won, my starting quarterback was 11 years old. I'm just saying. It is a fact. This is a fact. This is not Bears biasy. This is fact. This is birth fact.
This is a fact. I would make the same argument about Russell Wilson going to Denver. Been a long time since he's won a real game that's actually mattered or meant something. So this is why, Lou, you shouldn't be worried about him being in your division. He's on the backside of that career. Yes, he's got more talent around him, but he's playing the back nine on an 18-hole course. So Green Bay Packers, Ben. Fantastic transition. Good news. Not a lot to talk about here up in Wisconsin.
In terms of money, they have none.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about so the Rodgers numbers have been like officially released yet, right? There's like speculation on it. He even came out and was like, "That's not the contract." Blah blah blah. So they haven't been officially released. But
he's the pretty girl that wants to be told they're pretty.
Every day of the week.
It's Aaron Rodgers.
Every day of the week. If you don't have your looks, what do you have, right? Like, if I didn't have these rugged good looks, like, what do I have? So they're in the hole almost 46 million, right? So that literally puts them dead last, and a big portion of that is the Devontae Adams application of the franchise tag. They're going to work that out. That's going to turn into a long-term contract that'll come off the books eventually. But as where they sit right now, heading into free agency, they're $45.8 million in the hole. I know we say the salary cap is fake. These type of numbers are a little bit harder to fabricate than being like plus or minus
it's
10
embarrassing.
million. Yeah, like this is New Orleans Saint territory last year and Atlanta Falcon territory last year, where they're like negative like 60, 70, 80 million dollars. Their top needs, which is very perplexing, is I'll say it's across the field, but it is wide receiver. It is on the defense side of the ball, linebacker, offensive line. They need help. Again, back on the defense side of the ball, edge. They have 24 total free agents right now. But the two most important dominoes have fallen. Rodgers is back 4 years. Devontae Adams back with the franchise tag. Those were priorities number 1 and number 2 for LaFleur and Gutekunst. That's what they had to do. But what's crazy to me is because we've all talked about Aaron Rodgers wanted to leave for greener pastures. One last hurrah. And a lot of people would say Green Bay gives him the best chance to get to the coup de grace of the NFL, back to the Super Bowl. I'm going to tell you here and now, that's not actually true, right? When all is said and done, because they are so far in the hole, and we talk about some of these free agents, there's still a lot of work to be done, and they don't necessarily have the ability to do it, at least in 2022, right? Like, in going into this season. And this is a team that's coming off, they had 2 consecutive NFC championship losses, and then just lost a heartbreaker in the divisional round against the San Francisco 49ers in a game where, outside of their first offensive possession, did nothing on offense.
The guy didn't do anything for you.
Literally nothing. I've watched Aaron Rodgers play a lot of football games. I've been to a lot of Green Bay Packer games around, because I have a cousin who's a diehard Packers fan. I've been to Lambeau now multiple times. Yeah. I've never seen this man this disgusted walking off the field in between like series and things of that nature, where if you were to ask me after that game, I would have definitively said that was his last game in Green Bay. Like, he's out, he's over. Yeah, it's all. I mean, nobody can pay him what they're paying him right now anyway. Right.
I don't think anybody should.
No, I mean, honestly, if you ask me, he is the best quarterback in the NFL.
He is.
Regular season.
Talent-wise.
Regular season.
But we'd have the same argument like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. Like, how are you going to actually tell me that Tom Brady's a better quarterback than Peyton Manning? Like, you can't. Like, Peyton Manning was an offensive coordinator in the fucking huddle. You know, Tom Brady just has a much better looking playoff record than anybody else, and that's where that argument is won every single time. So, priority free agents. Robert Tonyan is prior. If Rodgers and Adams were 1 and 2, Robert Tonyan is absolutely number 3. This dude is he is of the mold of George Kittle. He plays a similar brand of football. He just, like, last season, he finally was getting in stride, and
I
then
drafted him last year.
I
don't draft Packers players. I drafted him.
He's a good football player that takes care of the football.
He's not staying there.
He's going to go get paid. Somebody's going to pay him, especially with a thin tight end market right now.
Yep.
And they have to prioritize him. Just don't know if they can. The other for me is Devondre Campbell. Dude, bald.
Again, can they pay him?
No, they can't. So that's
the thing for as a Bears fan. It's mind-boggling as a football fan to see what they're doing and the fact that they can't afford to bring anybody back, let alone go get anybody. But as a Bears fan, it's very, very sweet. Yes, we have to put up with Aaron Rodgers a few more years, but to see the money that they're spreading out, they're just put in next year. They're going to dig themselves too deep of a hole to where they're going to financially ruin their team for at least 5 years at some point.
And this next player is in that same vein. Cornerback Rasul Douglas.
There you go.
Off the scrap heap. He just played himself into a sizable contract. It is openly discussed how the Green Bay Packers were enamored with Stephon Gilmore, but they couldn't get him, and they brought in Rasul Douglas, who outplayed Stephon Gilmore statistically and for the year. Homeboy's going to go get paid. Green Bay can't afford to pay him. And then the last one for me, priority-wise, is Allen Lazard, another wide receiver. I said they need wide receiver help and depth. Even just that continuity. Like, him and Rodgers were finally getting a little something going, right? You know, like towards down the stretch of the year. And Devontae Adams is really good. Like, really, really, really good. But in this day and age in the NFL, you got to have more than one guy. More than one guy. You better have a stud tight end, or you got to have a second complimentary wide receiver. I'm not saying Allen Lazard is a superstar, but Aaron Rodgers makes you a superstar. And if he trusts you, like, you can't go into the season with Randall fucking Cobb and Amari Rodgers, like, as your compliments to Devontae Adams. Just can't do it. So cap casualties. I just mentioned how they started free agency in, like, real trouble. Yeah, like, honestly, so here are the big ones that they're talking about. And this is not me. This is literally coming. Some of this makes sense to me, but a lot of this is coming from out of necessity and coming from the talking heads in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Edge rusher Zadarius Smith. He's $27 million against the cap this year. He'd save them 15.2. Another edge, Preston Smith, saves them 12.4. I don't see a scenario where they cut both.
No.
This is an either or scenario.
Wasn't Zadarius Smith hurt all last year too?
Yeah, it is going to be Zadarius Smith, and And I'm not trying to throw salt in your wound, Ben. I'm really not trying to be that guy. But having Rashawn Gary come on last year, I think makes Darius Smith, disposable. So he really
It'd be
played
nice
well, Gary.
it would be nice to be able to develop players. That would be very nice.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the trade here, but it's going to be one or the other, right? It could be both. Not likely it's both, because if you cut both of them, I mean, like, you're 3/4 of the way through that cap number, right? That you need to eat up, but you can't do that. Rashawn Gary's a nice piece, but like that leaves literally nothing else, like no complimentary piece whatsoever. The other one to me is wide receiver Randall Cobb, 8.1 million post June 1 designation. He's got to go. There's no reason to hold on to him. And the final piece for me is defensive tackle Dean Lowry, 5.95 million post June 1 designation. Like, these are things that they have to consider. Like, Dean Lowry's
good though.
He's a good player.
He's good. He always flashes.
But do they have to find money? He's good. He's not great.
This is what they've done to themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to have all-stars. You can't keep good players if you're the Green Bay Packers right now. Good's not good enough anymore.
I mean, this is what happens when you settle the devil to go 13-3, 13-3, 14-3. Like,
and
that's just the way
exit.
it goes. Yeah, and like, this is what happens. You know what I mean? Yep. But this is what's so perplexing to me is like Aaron's not a dummy. Like, let's call it like he's a very intelligent, articulate individual. He's
got the Green Bay Packers organization by the balls, right?
Yeah.
Literally.
So is this a money play? He is a fucking dude. When you're
Jordan Love, man.
When your own family doesn't talk to you and like rips you the way that his family does, like, there's shit that we don't like.
I'm gonna go watch a movie with my family because Aaron Rodgers can't.
Fiancés, right?
Yeah.
Which, how many times has he been engaged?
I mean, let's just say that women are crazy, so that's their fault, not his fault, right?
So I find something interesting. I find something interesting. He, grew up in this Packer organization where this was done to him, what he's doing to Jordan Love. I find it remarkable that he's repeating the same behavior as opposed to like, hey,
I don't at all.
Yeah, hey, I didn't like him when it was get done to me because Brett Favre was not. A good teammate to Aaron Rodgers. So he's basically repeating the same shitty behavior to Jordan Love. So
and being worse.
I can't believe he's actually, he actually went down that same exact road.
Yeah.
It's not a nice guy.
I think he's at a point where he's like, I'm just going to screw this organization. You're just going to pay me a lot of money. Like, there's nothing on paper that tells me this is about going to win the Super Bowl.
Because I would have traded his ass.
This team can't.
They should have.
I would have.
Last year, they could have got a ransom back.
Yeah. Yeah, this team just can't be better than they've been over the last 3 years. Like, it's just not it's not there. Good news is Russell Wilson's out of the NFC, right? Tom Brady's gone from the NFC. Like,
the NFC sucks.
Becomes a little bit easier
to the division title.
Yeah, I mean,
it's wake up and win.
But here's the thing: when you're Aaron Rodgers, if you are indeed getting paid $50 million a year and you get to beat up on the shitty ass Lions, Bears, and Vikings 6 games out of your season, like, that's your competition. You're at least going to win 5 of those. You're going to be the number 1 seed, because like you just said, Russ is gone, Brady's gone. I don't know who comes next. Maybe Kyler Murray, but we all know how the Arizona Cardinals are in the playoffs. They're going to be the top seed. It's not going to matter if they lose in the first round after getting the bye because that city worships the ground that he walks on.
Yeah, except
never going to change.
Fact. So, have any of you been to Lambeau? Have you any of you been to Lambeau before?
I have not. Close I've gotten to Milwaukee.
When you go to Lambeau, like, you can literally, like, if you don't park in the stadium's parking lot, you can park on people's front yards. You can literally just throw them like $20, $40, and you can park on their front yard across from the stadium. It's sick. Like, it's an awesome environment.
Love it.
So the dude whose front yard that I parked on, it was like a random guy who was doing it for a bunch of houses. I come out of the game. I'm on cloud 9 because the 49ers won.
Yeah.
And I meet the guy who actually owns the house that my vehicle is parked on, his front yard. And I'm like, dude, you weren't in the game? He's like, I fucking hate the Packers. I was like, bro, you live across the street from Lambeau Field and you hate the Packers? Like,
you just charged for the parking.
Dude.
He's definitely not a shareholder.
No, this guy told me straight up. He was like, dude, I pay my entire mortgage of this house for the entire year just from parking for home Packer games. So in 8 games, he pays his mortgage for the entire year.
He works 8 days a year?
That's absolutely disgusting.
Sick, right? I mean, he fits 30
That makes me want to go
throw
up right now.
Yeah.
And how much money I'm paying in rent? Oh,
I know, dude. Well, you guys are in Florida. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, listen, it wouldn't be any better if you were in Chicago. You know,
No, it would
So
not.
it's
No, it would
a
not.
nightmare. All right, so let's get to like what they can do. They have to address the tight end position, and I don't think Tunyon's coming back. That should be the priority. So, do you flirt with like Evan Ingram? Maybe, right? But everybody's talking
Just to
about
get
how he's
somebody
a
under
wide
contract.
receiver. Like, you gotta get somebody under contract, somebody competent in
Yeah.
some capacity, right? Like somebody who poses at least an athletic threat, like not an actual threat, but like from an athleticism standpoint. Then I start thinking about edge if Zendarius goes or Preston goes or whatever it is. And the names that come to me are like Melvin Ingram, right? Like Melvin Ingram is not the Melvin Ingram that was in LA for all of those years, or he was actually in San Diego for all of those years. But Melvin Ingram actually had a good little stretch there at the end of the year with the Kansas City Chiefs in spot. Like this is what the type of people that they're going to look at. Justin Houston, Jerry Hughes. Like these are guys that are going to be in the conversation that are in the latter part of their career that are not going to cost a lot of money, but can be serviceable. When I think about that same concept from like the linebacker position, if Campbell's gone, like is it Dante Hightower? Is it Leighton Vander Esch? Like these are the types of contracts that they have to entertain based on what their cap scenario is right now. Like wide receiver, like they don't have a shot at any of the big names. They can't bring in. I mean, They can't even afford Christian Kirk. They can't even afford DJ Chark. Like they can't afford these guys.
the guys that they have.
Yeah, like so to me, like Emmanuel Sanders is somebody that I think Aaron Rodgers would love. Like who's more reliable at the end of the day than Emmanuel Sanders? Right? He's 35 years old. It's not a huge contract. Somebody a savvy vet like that, Rodgers would eat up. He
loves Randall Cobb.
Yeah, like
Antonio Brown.
Nah,
Please.
In Wisconsin,
Please.
dude. Not in Wisconsin.
I want to see what kind of messed up antics he'd have there.
Bro, they'll hang him in Wisconsin. They don't play that shit, bro. Like these are
that Jets game.
These are farm country boys. They'll come get you, dude.
The biggest scam in football is the stock share that they sell, which is probably what they're paying Aaron Rodgers' contract with.
This is why when I do my state power rankings, Wisconsin's 50.
Yeah.
50 out of 50.
So, Scott, you bring up a good point. So the first game that I ever went to in Lambeau was a 49er Packer playoff game, and this was like Colin Kaepernick era. So this is the 2013 year where we lost to Seattle in the NFC Championship. I, on a whim, I read an article about how the shareholders were at odds with the board, and they were talking about blacking out the game in the local network. And I was like, oh, that's a problem. That's a playoff game. Went and did some research, looked at ticket prices. Dude, I sat on the 49-yard line behind the 49ers bench, 2 rows back, and I paid $125 a ticket for that playoff game.
Wow.
This divisional game that I went to this past year, my seats weren't nearly as good, and it was $500 a seat.
Wow.
Just to put it into perspective, right? So it is a scheme this is like a Ponzi scheme they're running on their fans. Like, hey,
that doesn't surprise me knowing the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, but
Doesn't surprise me.
So final piece here, and let's get the hell out of here. Let's get to Minnesota.
Please.
But
Said no one ever.
Yeah, said no one ever. But offensive line, like Bakhtiari is the linchpin here. Like Green Bay's O-line is not like terrible, but it definitely could be better.
Jenkins, they got the rookie from Ohio State.
But Bakhtiari is the name to watch here. Like, what's his health look like? What is that going to look like moving forward? Like, clearly he was rushed back and wasn't his same self like in the playoff game. But if we were talking about the draft, this is where we would talk about the draft for the Green Bay Packers. Is they're just going to have to draft O-line depth is like what it comes down to, because there's nobody else in free agency that,
and then pray that
they can even like flirt with. Like right now, they are literally on paper are going to struggle to make a 53 in this day and age, a 65-man roster, right?
Yep.
When all said and done, because you get the extra practice squad players and then sign your draft class, like it's going to be an issue. So this again is where the rub lies, because it's like I thought Aaron wanted to go win one more before he hung it up.
The last game.
But newsflash, Packer fans, like you, I see no path. No. They were the best team in the NFC last year. It wasn't even close. Wasn't even close, in my opinion. Yeah. Like, that should have been the year. Didn't get it done. This year is going to be a much more difficult slate. That's what it boils down to. All right. Let's go to the Vikings, the Kirk Cousin-led Vikings.
Ooh, I'm going to talk about him in a minute.
million.
Don't steal my thunder. Don't steal my thunder. So the Minnesota Vikings, they're in serious issues. Their cap spaces are $15 million over, which ranks them 29th in the league. Looking at their top needs, it was crazy. I was looking at our lads, and basically I was dumbfounded by looking at this defense. No longer is this that vaunted defense from Mike Zimmer in the years past. Those defenses were stacked. This defense is an aging old defense that this is going to be the beginning of a transition for them. And they don't even have any pieces really, in my opinion, outside Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook that can help them during this transition. This is the start of something that's going to be really painful for them. Looking at their top needs, I see interior defensive line, edge, linebacker, cornerback, safety. I just named every level of a defense right there. So that's a problem because the Minnesota Vikings are pretty much, built on those strong defenses. So some priority free agents, Anthony Barr. I'm a huge Anthony Barr fan. That being said, I always felt like he got drafted to the wrong team. I always felt like he should have been a 3-4 outside linebacker, and they used him as a Sam linebacker. I was never a fan of that. He's getting up there in age. They've been asking him to do things that he physically can no longer do when it comes to dropping in coverage. So I feel like they do look, to get younger and cheaper, at the linebacker position from Anthony Barr. Patrick Peterson, that was a bust signing. That was pretty much because a team that used to be loaded at cornerback position no longer had cornerback position, so they just fell in love with the name, and he was pretty awful last year. Another cornerback that's up for free agency, Mackenzie Alexander. I don't think they're going to, look for his services anymore. And then Xavier Woods is their free safety. I think once again, that's something I think they can entertain because he was mediocre. But when you're $15 million over the cap, you're going to be starting some mediocre players. But if you notice, I just said 3 starters when it comes to their secondary. So they do definitely need some help in that back end of that defense. So some possible cap casualties. Ben, you said it right, 100% right. The elf in the room is that Kirk Cousins number. It counts for $45 million in cap space.
That's brutal.
And there's absolutely nothing in this world they can do. They are eating it, and they're just told that they have to like it. That's what happens.
Browns fans that they love Kirk Cousins.
But there's nothing that the Vikings can do. If they trade him away, that's all dead money.
Yep.
But they almost had Jim Harbaugh. Hey, you
want to hear a funny fact about Mackenzie Alexander? Oh, he played high school down here in Immokalee, and he was teammates with D'Ernest Johnson. And my senior year, I was talking a little smack to Mackenzie Alexander, and he called me a little white boy, and I didn't talk to him after that.
You didn't talk to him after that. Mackenzie Alexander disavowed.
So, Scott, what we're obviously going to do is tag Mackenzie Alexander in this video and say he's no longer a little white boy. He's a big white boy.
He's a grown man now, man.
Yeah, right.
This is
where
he went.
I think it was like he decommitted from like Alabama and then like went to Clemson. But it was like the day that he like decommitted from I think it was Bama. And one of our wide receivers just put him on skates, and he like came over to our sidelines like because the play was there. And I was like, "Ooh, look like you didn't even got an offer from Alabama. You didn't have to decommit." He's like, "Hey, shut up, little white boy." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
He taunted you. He taunted you. Did he stare at you?
Yep.
Did he stare at you?
Oh yeah,
that's a flag. 15 yards.
And he got unnecessary roughness too somehow.
Yeah.
And he got way more money than I do.
Ouch.
So joke was on me.
Yeah.
Joke was on me.
Usually is on us. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Speaking on them is the Minnesota Vikings are going to have to make some tough decisions, and a lot of these names are the staple of this defense over the last 3 or 4 years. You're going to be hearing, but I don't see a way they really they try to get back in the green when it comes to the salary cap without making some of these moves. Danielle Hunter, his name's been floating around. He's still really young. He's still really good. His name has been floating around for a while in trade talks. I do feel like they'll either cut him or trade him If they do cut him post June, he'll have a dead money hit of $6 million, cap savings of $20 million. So right then and there puts him in the net of $5+ million if they trade away Danielle Hunter. It's going to be hard because we're not talking about the draft once again, but this is a heavily edge focused draft. There's a lot of edge rushers in the first 3 rounds. So it's always harder to trade away a player that's expensive and where you can get someone cheaper, in the draft. Michael Pierce, 29-year-old defensive tackle, post June 1st cut. They can save $8.5 million with only a dead money hit of 1.9. Eric Kendricks, love Eric Kendricks. I think he's one of the most underrated linebackers out there with Demario Davis. But guess what? He's getting up there in age too. He's 30 years old. He's off the ball linebacker. I think they can probably go through the draft and get someone cheaper. His cap savings will be $9.5 million if they cut him post June 1st. Here's a little shocker. I think this is someone I would really do, and I think it might be a little controversial. Adam Thielen, injury history, 31 years old, post June 1st cut, can save him $12.6 million. Only a dead money hit of 4.3. Get younger, get more dynamic.
I mean,
and
they
explosive.
do have Justin Jefferson, so it's like, why not go get a cheaper number 2?
And you know what? Osborne flashed too last year.
Yeah,
so
he looked good.
So you think about it, they can use a 2nd round pick in the draft or get someone cheaper, in free agency than a 31-year-old Adam Thielen. I don't think his best football is
I'll
ahead
take
of him
Adam
anymore.
Thielen.
Yeah, that's not.
I can go for a season of Adam Thielen. Right now, I got Darnell Mooney. That's it, and no defense.
So some free agent targets. If they do part ways with Hunter, they're going to have to address the edge position. They can do that via the draft, and they can do it through some cheaper ways in free agency. Some names to be on the lookout to replace Hunter: Randy Gregory. We said Derek Barnett. Now, Derek Barnett is not flashy. His ceiling is not really high. He's never had, I think, more than 6 sacks in a season tops. But he has a high floor, and he does provide some consistency. Yep. So Derek Barnett is actually a name I can see going out there to Minnesota. Or how about Dante Fowler or Charles Harris? These are guys that are not going to break the bank, but they're looking to get starter money, albeit low starter money. But I think those are names that can obviously be cheaper than Hunter and still provide some type of production on the edge position. Because they have another guy, I think, Wanham, who flashed really well last year too. Had a couple of 3-sack games. Cornerback position, like I said, the Peterson signing was awful. It was a bust. I could picture them once again. And imitations is the best form of flattery. A lot of these teams, I feel like, are going to start emulating what the Cincinnati Bengals did and get a lot of value signs in the back end, and it really worked out for them. So why not your Steven Nelsons, your Travarius Wards, your Rasul Douglases? Those are all names that that are looking for starter money but won't break the bank. Okay, so at the linebacker position, I've said if they do walk away from Kendricks, they're going to have to get cheaper. And, Alexander Johnson from Denver would be a good target for them. He's coming off a pec injury, but before they played really well for Denver. I feel like a lot of people don't talk about him. In 2020, he had 124 tackles, and in 2019, he had 93 tackles. Being that he's coming off an injury, the pec injury, and he's also 30 years old, I don't think he's going to cost too much at all. And I think that would be a great replacement for Kendricks. Other names to look for: Leighton Vander Esch. He's an up-and-down career. Started off hot, but it's cooled off as of late. And Kazir White might be a little too pricey for them, but if you do follow the Chargers, he was all over the field last year, and he had his best year. He's a converted safety from West Virginia, and when they finally moved him to the box, because he's not the best of coverage, but when they finally moved him into the box, he really flashed a lot last year. He's one of their better players on that defensive side of the ball. So that could be another player to look out for there in Minnesota.
The Minnesota Vikings.
They're a team in purgatory, it looks like.
Yeah.
They don't know if they want to rebuild.
these days.
So this after just going through like Green Bay scenario, I mean, the elephant in the room is like Aaron Rodgers makes them win the division, but I can't help but go back to Scott's earlier comment about like was the trade of Khalil Mack reactionary to Aaron Rodgers staying? Because all of a sudden I'm looking at this, I'm like, God damn, this is a fucking winnable division. Like,
Exactly.
you know, like holy shit.
I feel like it'd be a coin flip.
Yeah, but I think what tips the scales is Aaron Rodgers, right? Like that, like literally tips the scales. But if he's no longer in this division, like, go ahead, Chi-Town, like load up, and like you got a shot because Kirk Cousins has moments, right? Like he has moments where he is worthy. Listen,
those moments are usually during the day and not at night.
Yeah, 1 o'clock.
As long as you play at 1 o'clock games, bro, like you're all good.
Never forget, he was the reason that we got moved to prime time. Kirk Cousins was. Never forget. It was a terrible game. It was probably one of the worst games I've ever watched.
He's not a good primetime quarterback. We know that. His Monday night record is like abysmal.
I think he's like 0-10 or something.
Yeah, it's something bad. But like, dude, he's got those moments. And like, I mean, listen, Kyle Shanahan groomed this guy, right? So when we were in like quarterback limbo, I'm documenting. I'm like, fuck it, like go get him. You know what I mean? Like go get this guy. Knows the offense, does whatever. Like he's an upgrade to what's going on. But then I kind of like chuckled to myself and I'm like, maybe that wasn't the move, right? Like I'll roll with this Trey Lance guy and see how far we go with that. But let's end the way that everybody in the world wants to end, and that's covering the Detroit Lions.
Check your kneecaps.
Check your kneecaps.
I still have both.
Yeah.
I still have both of them.
I got 2.
So Lou will tell you over the season, I secretly became this like Detroit Lions fan, right? Where like like 3 weeks in a row, I'm like, they are winning this week, take it to the bank, and I was selling them harder. I have a good buddy of mine, a dear friend, who is a diehard Detroit Lions fan. He's from Detroit, though.
Lions.
He's, me too, against them.
I was getting with them. I was trying to manifest it.
They have glimmers of hope, right? But like, here's the reality. They have $26.5 million in cap space. They're actually 10th overall in the NFL. Envious, but they're still riding the ship. Like fans have no expectations. The team has no expectations right now. Like they know there's a long tail to this rebuild, but on paper they have assets to do that, right? Like they have a couple foundational players in some spots. They have a lot of draft capital coming up. That they're going to be able to leverage. We just talked about how the NFC North is like, there's a changing of the guard, right? Like, Aaron Rodgers there. Yeah, I mean, Aaron Rodgers there for 4 more years, but like, this dude is 38 years old. Like, he's you know what I mean? Like, can he play at Tom Brady level? Like, I mean, I've only seen Tom Brady play at that level post 40. Like, we don't know what that. So there's opportunity here. There's another year of a bridge quarterback in Jared Goff. So again, limited expectations. Top needs, everything that's addressable right now and realistic: wide receiver, cornerback, and offensive guard. I feel like they have
question. If we were talking about the draft, which we're not, do you think that they take one at 32? Because they have 2 first-round picks this year.
Yeah, I think.
Do you think that they would take someone?
A quarterback? That's prudent. I think
guys, hold on. We're not going to talk about the draft, but I need you to pin whatever you want to do, record this, whatever. They are taking a quarterback with the first round pick, and his name is
number 1,
number 2 overall,
and it will be Willis. Watch.
No, that's not prudent. That'll get Dan Campbell walked out of the building.
Clip that
at the minute mark.
Willis to the. I'll post it. I'm the one who does the posting. Willis to the Lions.
Okay.
All right.
Scott,
but this shows you how important that position is, right?
Weston, let them know how good I am with my drafts. By the way,
he is very good. I
got like 15 or 16 right last year in the first.
I mean, I can see, not wanting to talk about draft. People love to fall in love with quarterbacks like right before the draft. Like, I mean, Zach Wilson wasn't supposed to go number 2 overall, so I'll just leave it at that.
He wasn't supposed to go number 2 overall.
Quarterbacks always go early in the draft, and not only that, I saw Dan Campbell look at Willis at the Senior Bowl and Senior Bowl practices, and it's the same exact way I look at. It's the same exact way I look at a double cheeseburger with extra bacon on it. I'm telling you, man, the look in his eyes. He's like, I want that.
So. Wow. And I don't doubt that. what I think is more prudent is you take the 32nd pick and you take one of your second round picks.
Another quarterback.
And try to
take two.
Just draft 7 quarterbacks, like consecutive.
One of them
picks.
will work out.
Yeah, one of them. I mean, math would say that one of them has to work out. But if they don't take one at number 2 overall, which would be, in my opinion, foolish. There's not a single one of them that's worthy of the number 2 pick. If you want to take Malik Willis, trade out at number 2. Trade out.
Can't happen.
It's a lineman and edge rusher. Trade back to 7, 10, 12, 15. It makes it a little bit more justifiable. But if they're sitting at 32 and Pickett's still there, Matt Corral's still there, like they're going to roll the dice, dude. Like you have to. That's the prudent thing to do. But right now they have 35 total free agents. I don't think they really care about any of them. Right? Like they need camp bodies. Again, there's minimum expectations. If I had to label a couple that they might care about to try to win some football games, maybe wide receiver Josh Reynolds, his familiarity with Goff when he was healthy at the end of the year, played well. Edge rusher Charles Harris led the team in sacks last year, 8 sacks, still only 27 years old. Foundational pieces that we're talking about here. They have the money to bring them back. Maybe safety trade.
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah, dude.
Saved my fantasy season. Won me $250.
Bro. We talked about Amon-Ra. So during the season, part of our segments are talking about, I think for the last 7 weeks, Amon-Ra St. Brown came out at least one of our mouths every single time about have to play this guy. Like he hit his stride, balled out.
Kings, baby.
Speaking of wide receiver, though, the other one, Khalif Raymond. I think there's an opportunity to bring him back. He was 3rd on the team in receiving last year. He had like 70-plus targets, 27, still serviceable and not going to cost you a lot of money to field the team right now and have some continuity. If I was looking at cap casualties, like, there really isn't a lot here that's actually that obvious. A young team, insignificant contracts. You just paid Trade Flowers like a bunch of money. You're not just going to go cut him like one of those foundational pieces. They have cap space. What are they going to do? They're not going to be aggressive in free agency. They're going to take the existing cap space and they're going to parlay that into even more cap space next year when they can be much more aggressive. The prudent thing to do. If I had to split hairs here, there's 2 names that pop out to me. Right guard, Hala Pulavate Vaate. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but he's a $7 million post June 1.
Just Vitae, right? Oh, no,
what's that?
Vitae. Is that Vitae? Yeah,
Vitae. Yeah, Vitae. But the bigger thing here is the $9.5 million per year over the 2023-2024 season that they can get out of the contract. So that's a long tail savings. He's the 29-year-old guard, like replaceable. The other one's Jamal Williams. I know he was like a little prize free agency signing last year. Swift back, stays healthy. The emergence of like Craig Reynolds, who was like a fantasy beast for like 3 weeks in a row last year. Even their obsession with 22-year-old Jamar Jefferson, that makes Williams expendable. And that's $3 million in savings. A couple bucks, like $3 million helps you sign your draft class and not touch your cap space right now. Like
exactly
prudent decisions. Priority or target free agents. I just said the problem is like they have cap space, but doesn't mean they're going to be aggressive.
No one wants to go.
They want to go get top. Exactly.
They're going to have to overpay.
No one wants to play with Jared Goff.
The old Browns.
Yeah. And if you're Dan Campbell, you're like, I don't have to overpay. My job's not on the line, right? Like I have a 6-year contract and I'm entering year 2. Like, let's just be patient for a second. And this is not a preferred destination. Like there is no point, for example, to spend money on the likes of Allen Robinson just to sign him, who's like hitting twilight point of his career. Like no point. There's literally no point in that whatsoever. He's going to want a multi-year deal. You're going to have to pay him a bunch of money. He's just coming off consecutive franchise tags. Bad contract.
With bad quarterbacks. Decision. He's going to want to go play for like, he would be someone that would want to go play with like an Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or a Justin Herbert or anything.
Here's what they have to. No, agreed. And here's what they have to do. They have to find 1 or 2. This is what I mentioned to you earlier, Ben, about the Bears. Of those like younger budding players that have some potential that haven't hit superstar levels just yet, and convince them that you want to be here in 2 years. You want to be here in 3 years. We're going to right this ship. This division's going to become winnable. So when I think of like addressable positions that they could do right now, if I'm thinking about the wide receiver position, Michael Gallup feels like a good name, right? Who's been worried about the Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb and even Dalton Schultz stealing some of his things. He's not the top of the market. He's certainly not the bottom of the market. He's younger. He's coming off an ACL. And you can basically, I know Amaron's number one, but you can sell Gallup like, yo, you'll get number one targets. You'll get more than you got in Dallas, right? Yeah. Like DJ Chark, another one. Come revitalize your career. Let's not forget Chark is fucking 6'4" and runs like a 4.3 40, right? Like he's attractive and someone, again, it's not going to command a lot of money. When I think about the offensive line, younger pieces like an Andrew Norwell kind of comes to mind, right? It's like the one thing I feel like Jacksonville's done right lately. He's 30, but that's pretty young for an offensive lineman who's coming into their own. And he could be one of those like 2 to 3 year type contracts that could be a foundational piece to buy time. But to me, this is the biggest one. Cornerback. I think they should be all in on Darius Williams from the Rams. Like all in. If you want to go overpay for somebody this offseason, this is the guy that I'm going to go overpay for. Younger. I think he's got 3 to 4 good years left in him that could be part of this rebuild on the back end. And he's going to take some lumps. Like you play in Detroit, you're going against Aaron Rodgers like twice a year. Like you're going to take some lumps. But I think he's built of that. And these are the types of foundational pieces that I think they should add to the team. Are they going to sign people? Of course they will. They have to field a 53-man or, a 65-man total roster, 43, 46, on game day. Like you have to do that to at least play in the game. And nobody wants to just put out some bullshit product. Like you got to have, but most of the people that they're going to sign this offseason are going to be people that you and I never heard of. Ben might know them because there's probably going to be a lot of in-division swaps, right?
Yeah.
People are familiar with one another going back and forth, but I won't know who some of these guys are.
I'm not going to know who some of these guys are.
If
I'll be like, who the hell is that guy? It's going to be me on Sundays.
If we were talking about the draft, because we don't talk about the draft, that's where the Lions front office attention is right now. Plus or minus 1 or 2 guys that I think they can go convinced to be here for 4 to 5 years to be that foundational piece, which makes them intriguing to me, right? Because I want to see what those foundational pieces are, but they're in the same boat. They're not winning a division. They're not going to the playoffs. They know what the score is. They know what's up, and they know that if they win like 4 or 5 games. What's crazy though, dude, is I know like record says they didn't play that well last year. They were in a lot of close games. A lot of close games that could have gone either way, which you got to like because it's like there's fight in this team, right? Like, listen, at the end of the day, as fans, we say these teams suck. They're going to mail it in this year. The reality is players don't do that, right? Like they're all playing for contracts. They're all playing for livelihoods. They're all playing and you don't get to the NFL without being uber competitive. You just don't get there. Like I don't care how talented you are. You have to have that competitive streak about you as well to even be at this level. I mean, this is the upper echelon of athletes in the world when all said and done. So, I mean, nobody wants to end on the Detroit Lions the way that we did, but I certainly didn't want to make Ben wait all the way to the end to hash out the Bears.
That's fair.
Weston, I'll just say this one quick thing. You were talking about that, next year, will be the year to attract free agents. And what's better way to attract a free agent than getting a stud, rookie quarterback in Willis? I'm telling you, man, market.
All right.
And then another one at 32. So that way you can let the team vote. Let the team pick their captain.
No, I'm not even joking. The Browns fans really wanted us. When we had 1-4 and took Baker and Denzel, there was actually people advocating for us to pick 2 quarterbacks at 1-4 and have them duke it out. Like legit fans thinking that was a good strategy and that it was like a legit question that they
who did they want?
Actually do it. They just picked. They should take 2 out of the top 4, like Baker and Allen or Rosen and Darnold. Like mix and match.
So we know that's not a good idea. But when you really boil it down, like all first round picks don't pan out. We know that, right? Like there's more busts than there are actually like budding prospects. And Denzel Ward is a really good football player. So like that worked out. Like he's a really good football player. So that worked out. But there are worse scenarios to be in than drafting. Like think about what your overall cap hit is just by having, picking a quarterback at 1-4. It's still probably less than having a veteran quarterback and a rookie quarterback against like your cap number. You know what I mean? So like, it's not a good idea, right? Like to waste draft capital that way, but like strategically speaking, It's not the worst idea I've ever heard in my entire life, but nobody would do that. Like no sound general manager would ever actually do that. Ryan Pace would do it.
Yeah, no, we would just rather draft like Justin Gilbert and Johnny Manziel in the same draft.
Yeah, true. And Brandon Whedon and
Brandon Whedon, Trent Richardson. No, we can go all along.
We keep going.
Hey, at least you got a first round for Richardson.
This is steal.
Yeah,
I got my parents bought me a Trent Richardson jersey about 2 months before that trade, so that was
and that it was Indy, right? Who threw you the first one?
Yeah, Indy threw us the first round.
Yep.
Wasted.
So, fellas, first and foremost, this has been a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed yourself. We went almost like 2.5 hours. It means that we did some good stuff. This is your time to shine. Tell our listeners where they can find you, what you guys typically cover. Give us a quick overview of that pod. Shout yourself out, and we'll wrap up here.
Ben, this is you. Go.
This is all
plug it.
Okay, well, we are on Facebook. We are on Twitter. I love Twitter. My Twitter my Twitter @. It's after midnight, okay? The words are hard. My @ is on the screen. Scott's screen is on the @ you know what I'm trying to say. But we are on Twitter, BS Show 2020. I think Facebook is BS Show 2021. I don't know why I did that. I think that Facebook made me change it because, of course, they did. But we post a lot of things about football during football season. Now that baseball season is back, it's after 12 o'clock in the morning. It is technically the first day of spring training, so we will be posting a lot of baseball stuff. These are just exciting times. I actually have a road trip up to Chicago for this upcoming week. There will be some Wrigley Field content dropping on Keeping Up with the BS. So a lot of exciting things coming up here in the month of March. A lot of March Madness. Say that when you're really tired 5 times fast. A lot of March Madness bets. Lock them in. You're gonna win your tournament pool with us. You'll win your tournament pool.
I need all the help.
Ben hits a lot of movie reviews, a lot of Marvel stuff.
Yes, it's true.
I like to do hard seltzer reviews. So if you need any alcohol tried, that's what I like to do. So,
all right. Well, so that's Ben and Scott from the Keeping Up with the BS podcast. Lou, as you always do, tell everybody where they can find us, and we'll wrap it up, my friend.
Yeah, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at WTF Pod NFL. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Don't mean to steal your thunder. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers, so Weston takes me out to a nice fancy steak dinner.
That deserves 500.
I did.
Right?
We will share that.
I'm a big guy, man.
Yeah. We'll
get you there.
That's gonna cost me a pretty penny. I might starve myself and just watch Lou eat for the dinner. But I did make that promise to him, and I will hold up my end of the bargain.
What are you at right now?
Dude, I don't even know.
We don't talk about the draft or our subscribers.
Okay, we're gonna get you there. We're gonna get you there.
But
we're about
Ben
500 short. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Ben Scott, we appreciate you, man, more than you guys know. Again, we're the We're Talking Football podcast, and we'll catch up again when we cover the AFC NFC East is next in order for Lou and I. Have a great evening, all. Don't hang.